Okay, here we are. Shall we begin? The mimer. Hold on just 1 second. So we're going to learn tonight. This week is Parshas Emor. We learned already all the Maimarim of Emor in Likutei Torah, Baruch Hashem. So we have to be innovative and find other things to learn. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol neh b'dvarei. Tonight's shir is called "The Prince and the Guest at the Palace at the Royal Table." What kind of title is that? What's a prince and a guest at the royal table? So that's actually a story in the Zohar, in this week's Parsha, Parshas Emor. So the mimer that I'm going to learn is a mimer in the Alter Rebbe's Sidur. There's a few main Sfarim. There's Likutei Torah and Torah Or, that's the Parshas. And then there is a whole selection of Maimarim called Seif Mamari Admir Azakin. And then there was another selection that was made by the Mittler Rebbe, in which he inserted his versions of his writings of his father's Maimarim, which generally have a certain element of Rechayves Hanor, of the Bina element. The Mittler Rebbe everything was very, very, very broad, and everything was very breit. And so the Maimer, the Mittler Rebbe, he compiled a bunch of Chassidic discourses on the Sidur, on the order of davening, and in there, being that in the Sidur of the Alter Rebbe, there is the element relating to the Yom Tovim, the various different holidays. So there is a Shar Hamatzos, in which he has Maimarim about Pesach, Shar HaPurim, Maimarim of Purim, the Shar HaShavuos. Actually, it starts from Rosh Hashanah time. It starts off with, first there is Shar, there's a Maimarim on Rosh Chodesh, then there is Shar Elul, then the Shar Rosh Hashanah, and then there's Tefillas of Rosh Hashanah, Shar Atkiyos, and then there is on Yom Kippur, I think, a Maimer on Yom Kippur. Yeah, Shar Yom Kippurim, then the Shar HaSukkos, Shar HaLulav, and again Shar HaSukkos, twice. And then Shar HaChanukah, Shar HaPurim, Shar Chag HaMatzos, and there's on the Seder of the Agadah. And then you have a Maimer on Lag Ba'omer, Shar Lag Ba'omer, and then you have Shar Chag HaShavuos. So you have all the Yomim Tovim. They just recently reprinted the Sidur in a beautiful format. This one, Seder Tfilos Mikol Hashana, with Dach, and it makes learning the Maimarim of this Sidur. Generally, the Maimarim of the Sidur is a little more complicated to learn, maybe just because the way it was always written in Rashi letters, and it was hard to concentrate. Now they just spread it out in such a beautiful way. So what I want to do today is I want to learn one of the Maimarim in the Sidur, which we've done in the past, quite a few Maimarim of the Sidur already. And initially I was thinking to do the one on Lag Ba'omer, but I didn't choose that one. Instead, one that's really related to this week's Parsha, Parshas Emor, being that Parshas Emor is the Parsha of the Moyadim. It's the Parsha of Yomim Tovim. It's where it introduces all the holidays. So in the Sidur, there is a Shar, a portal, where he's discussing in general the idea of Yomim Tovim. And this mimer is pretty long. It's a mimer, and then it has an explanation and another explanation. It's based on a passage of the Zohar where the Alter Rebbe, it's almost like a Biur HaZohar mimer, like we've been learning. It's the same writer, the Mittler Rebbe. Biur HaZohar mimer, we just learned the last 2 weeks. We were learning a mimer on Parshas Tazria Mitzayra, all about a nega. And now again, we're going to learn another mimer. This one on Parshas Emor, this one dealing about Yom Tov. It has certain similarities, because over there we discussed that Negoyim come from an overpowering left side that is dominating over the right side. There's an intensity in Bina and a lacking in Chachma, if anybody that wants to look at that discourse. It was called the Bedulach, the dew of Bedulach. So now, when it comes to the holidays, again, the Maayon is going to discuss, the Zohar discusses the difference between the dynamics, the spiritual dynamics of Shabbos, and the spiritual dynamics of Yom Tov. How they're very different than each other in their energy and so on and so forth. And we know that the chiluk is that Shabbos is Meir, the moichin of Abba, of Chachma, and Yom Tov is primarily the moichin of Bina. And that's what he's going to discuss in the Maayon. We learned the subject already quite a few times in Memorim, the difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov, famous Maayon in Parshas Tzav, where it discusses the difference between Moichin the Abba, Moichin the Emor, Moichin when we have the Moichin from the father, from Chachma, or Moichin from Bina. So I didn't learn the whole Maayon yet. I'm definitely not going to teach the whole thing. It's long. Hopefully we'll do the first half this week and the second half next week. Being that I didn't learn a complete thing, obviously I don't have yet the neshama of the Maayon, the soul of the Maayon is not shining by me yet. And I'm still confused on a few things. I hope that just learning it together with everybody that's joining, that itself will bring clarity. Because what's a Maayon? A Maayon is a divine transmission. It's given over through holy words, godly words. So even if we just hear these words, we allow these words to go through our brain, that's already a purification. It purifies your brain completely. All the junk gets cleansed, and only good, holy, godly words come in. That's just, even if you just hear the holy words. Words from Gan Eden and words from beyond Gan Eden. But in addition, it's a godly revelation. The Alter Rebbe is conveying, he's bringing down godliness to the world. He's the beginning already of the teachings of Mashiach, in which divinity will flow through Melech HaMashiach. Melech HaMashiach is the continuation of the teachings of Chassidus. So what happens when you learn a Maayon is it's not just that you're learning the words, or even if you're understanding the concepts, it's that the revelation, the connection should happen, that you should suddenly feel and experience divinity in your soul. So that is always related to the public. In today's days that we can't have physical joining at the teaching of the discourse, so even if you're not here physically to join, but still the connections are being made through the various online connections. And you have to say that this is what the Eibishter wants right now, so the connections are very real. So thank you for joining. Let's learn, and let's hope that the Eibishter will reveal himself in this Maayon as it has happened all the other times, which we merited to always have that godly revelation as we learn. Okay, so let me read to you first the passage of the Zohar, which is going to sound pretty cryptic, and then the Alter Rebbe's explanation, which we're not going to really learn. See, in the beginning, he just lays down, basically what we're going to be learning today, he lays down the fundamental ideas. He doesn't tie it together that much. He lays down the fundamental ideas, and he doesn't yet explain the wording of the Zohar. So really, in truth, we really wait to read the Zohar till next week's class. But being that it's going to be Lag BaOmer this week, so we're going to read the Zohar, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, as an introduction. And in addition, of course, he makes reference to what he's saying. So we're going to read, and it's okay if we don't understand everything. I don't understand it all, and I don't think it's possible to understand it all before we learn the whole Maayon. And we'll see as we learn. Okay. So the Zohar begins as follows. Tochazi, come and see. This is in Daf Tzad. Now, for those who are following, I think on YouTube and on Facebook there should be copies of the text, so you can follow along inside. I did not make copies of the text of the Zohar, so the portion that I'm reading right now you don't have in front of you. I did make, however, the copies of the Maayon itself, of the discourse itself. So it says like this: Tochazi, come and see. B'shaita the Yisroel letata chadon bahana mo'edaya. At the time when the Jewish people below, down here in the physical world, rejoice during Yom Tov, and they praise God. On Yom Tov, we're praising Hashem. It reminds me of Belgium. What do Jews do? We go to shul and we sing and we praise God and we sing Zemiras by the meal and we sing and we're singing the Gunim and we're bringing and we're Yom Tov is not just a time for physical pleasure. It's a time that we have a higher spiritual connection. So this year, when everybody was in isolation, so people were davening. There was no shul. So the places that had Jews a little bit more concentrated, a lot of in Eretz Yisrael, we didn't do it here in Los Angeles, at least not on my block. Maybe some people didn't. But in other places, people went out on the porches and they davened, with social distancing. But people were on their own porches at their home. And in some places, the porches were close enough together that you can even appoint a chazan and the person can lead them in davening. So I guess in this town in Belgium, they had this group, and not stam a group, but people who liked singing, and not only who liked singing, but who knew how to sing. So they have a Gentile who recorded it, and she said, "What I'm going to." This was a woman. Generally, not all the European Gentiles are so fond of their Jewish neighbors. I guess there are some exceptions. This woman had something beautiful to say. She said, "What I am going to miss after the quarantine is over is this singing." And she put on her Facebook a recording of what was going on Pesach, of the Chassidim singing Hallel. And it was just magnificent. You have the Chazan singing, and then you have everybody chiming in, and it just sounded really beautiful. So if it sounds beautiful down here to our ears, it's amplified and sounds so much more beautiful as it rises up to God. So it says at the time when the Jewish people down here rejoice on Yom Tov, when they praise the Eibishter, and they set their tables. Yes, it includes setting your table beautiful for Yom Tov. And they put on beautiful clothing. They wear more expensive clothing on Yom Tov, because as we know, you're not supposed to wear the same weekday clothing. You're supposed to have special Shabbos and Yom Tov clothing, garments. Now, this happens during a weekday. The whole discussion of this mimer is going to be on the idea, how do we take a weekday and we suddenly turn it into Yom Tov? It turns into a holy day. It's a regular Shavuos. Shavuos is going to come out on Friday this year, Thursday night. So a Friday, which is not a holy day, it's Erev Shabbos, is going to be Yom Tov. And so, okay, it's going to be one day, it's going to be Shabbos, the second day, but the first is going to be Friday. So a weekday becomes Yom Tov. So Mela Shabbos, the angels are accustomed. Shabbos that we're celebrating with different, but suddenly Yom Tov. So every time it happens, I guess it maybe they're new angels that were just born, so they weren't around the block and remembered from last year. So they wonder, and they say, "Malachei Eloi Omrim," the supernal angels say, "Ma tiva the Yisroel b'kach." What are the Jews doing? Why suddenly on a Wednesday are they all so excited? Kucheviruchu Amar. So God answers them, and God says, "Ushpizi Allah Islan Yom." They have a special guest. We used to the word ushpizin, which is an Aramaic word. We're used to it from Sukkot. On Sukkot, we always know we have the Yeshpizin. Who are the Yeshpizin? Are the guests. Now, we're referring to generally when we say mostly the Yeshpizin, we're talking about the spiritual guests that come to our Sukkah. And these are the great Tzaddikim that join us. Avram of the Zohar discusses that every day Sukkot is another one of the Tzaddikim come accompanied by all the others. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, so on. But the word Yeshpizin really means a guest. So the Zohar actually talks about how we're supposed to have physical guests as well, poor people, to invite people that are, for whatever reason, can't make their own Yom Tov meals. We should invite these people for our Yom Tov meals. These are the physical guests. And in addition to that, you have the spiritual guests. But the Zohar says that God answers to the angels, to the Malachim, and he says, today's a special day. There's a great guest coming. There is a supernal guest that there is on this day. Amru v'lav dilachu. So the Malachim say, but this guest is coming to you. It's your guest. Why are they, when a special guest comes, you dress special or you set the table and you're excited. You make special preparations because the guest is coming. But the guest is coming to you. It's not coming to them. Mahu asar de ikra kodesh. And the guest is somehow a guest invited by that place that's called holy. And what does holy mean? Removed from the world, removed from all levels. And definitely removed from the angels. This is very high up, and they're down there. What do they have to do with this? The line, so Hashem answers them, Yisroel lav kodesh ninu. Are the Jews not holy? They also belong to this supernal holiness, where the guest is invited to. So they're also ve'ikrin kodesh. Hashem says two things. Aren't they holy? And they're called holy. It is worthy for them to invite my guest. So it doesn't only say that it's worthy for them or befitting for them to participate in the guest. It says it is worthy for them to invite the guest. So that's already something new that we don't have. The angels didn't ask about inviting the guest. They said, "B'chlal, what are they exciting about? Why do they dress up because the guest is coming?" Okay, so we'll have to see about this. Chad mesitr dali. Now the reason why they are holy and they're worthy to connect to this guest or to invite this guest, number one, from my end, the in and they can be because they cleave to me, so they're attached to me. So my guest, I guess, is their guest as well. And also because of the element of holiness. Which, what does it mean? A secondary thing. How is that second? That's also God. Holy is who's holy? God is holy. So we have to understand what this means. One is from my end and one is from the side of holiness. In other words, Jews are at both attached to me and they're attached to holy. As it says, Kodesh Yisroel Hashem, that the Jewish people are Kodesh to God. So you see, they're connected to the level of Kodesh. Since the Jewish people are called holy. So this guest who is invited into the Kodesh, we'll soon see who this guest is. This guest who's invited into the holy is also their guest. And therefore they participate. Because this guest is being invited from Kodesh, which is where they are connected to. The invitation, they're being called, these guests, Mikra'e Kodesh, are being called. They were invited by Kodesh. Kodesh invited them. And since the Jewish people are attached both to me and to Kodesh, so therefore they can participate in this party that is being made for this special guest. So the Malachim hear this and they all say, fortunate is the people that so is to him. That is awesome. Or they're impressed with the Jewish people that we can participate in Yom Tov. Now, this itself is awesome already. It's so good that we can have something that the angels are envious of. We go to the party, they're not invited to the party. We go to the party where the special guest is coming. So who are the special guests? Now the Zohar continues. There are three that are invited from Kodesh. Kodesh is the inviter, the one who is inviting, the host. Kodesh is the host, and Kodesh is inviting. So the Zohar says, there are three who are invited to Kodesh. And who are they? And no more. Only three get invited. Who are they? Chag HaMatzos. The Yom Tov of Matzos is one member of that invitation. Chag HaShavuos, the second invitee. I don't know if there's such a thing, if we say invitee. Is the Yom Tov of Shavuos. That's another one who is invited to Kodesh. The Chag HaSukkos and Chag HaSukkos, they are all Mikra'e Kodesh. They are called by Kodesh. Kodesh invites them in. These three guests. Chag HaMatzos, Pesach, Chag HaShavuos, Shavuos, Chag HaSukkos. Amalei Rabba. So Rabba says, you're so determined to say that only these three and no one else. V'chi Shabbos lav mekodesh iu zamen. Shabbos is not invited by Kodesh. Every Shabbos. The Yom Tovs are special, they're invited. But Shabbos is not also invited. Amar lei, so he answered him. Who's the one who said this? I think this is all Reb Shimon. Speaking. if you try, because I began the Zohar in the middle over here. Let me go back over here. Who's the Baal HaMaimer over here? Give me a minute till we find the name back here. Reb Shimon Omer, yeah. So it's Reb Shimon, so perfect. This is perfect for pre-Lag BaOmer. It's Reb Shimon saying this whole thing, who's invited from Kodesh? These people are invited, or these entities are invited. So when he asks him, Rabbi Abba says, Shabbos is also invited. Amalei Lav, Shabbos is not invited. B'trei Sitrin for two reasons. On two ends. Chad, one, the Ivadai Kodesh Ikra. Shabbos itself is called Kodesh. So it doesn't have to be invited into holiness. It is holy in it of itself. The Chsiv Shmartem Es Shabbos, it says you should observe the Shabbos, Ki Kodesh Hi Lachem. She is holy. The day itself is holy. Versus Yontiv, which is also a holy day, but Yontiv, holiness is added to a day that's essentially not holy. It's a weekday in which it's invited into the world of holiness. It's mundane, but holiness, it's let's call it, it's injected with holiness. It's infused with holiness. But inherently it's not holy because it's a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Sunday, a Monday, a Friday, whatever day of the week it is. 6 days of the week in which Yom Tov is, unless it falls out on Shabbos. But the Yom Tov itself is a weekday day, which is infused with holiness. But Shabbos, she herself is holy, so she doesn't have to be invited by holy. That's one reason. The Shabbos lav zamini. Another reason is because Shabbos is not a guest. Not a guest. Why? It's his inheritance. It's his inheritance. Although he has a right to come into holy. He's got the keys. He doesn't need, Shabbos does not need to come as a guest. Yerusa de Kodesh hu yaris. He inherits the inheritance of holiness. V'lav zeminu, and therefore he's not a guest. So number one, he himself is holy. Number two, he's not a guest of holy. So we have to understand what are these two things. If he himself is holy, so why do you have to say any inheritance? He doesn't inherit it. He himself is holy. An inheritor is still someone else who inherits. A child inherits the father. But here, we're saying, if he himself is the father, then he's not an inheritor. So we have to understand what Reb Shimon means. Reb Shimon is saying two things. Number one, he is holy. Number two, he has it as an inheritance. Valdah kilas minin b'kodesh. And for that, and because of this, all of them are invited in holiness, umiskashrin b'Shabbos, and they attach to Shabbos. That means that the other holy days, because they're guests, they attach themselves to Shabbos, umisatnen bay, and they crown themselves with Shabbos. You know, they need some protectia, so to speak, from Shabbos. Shabbos gives them the connection. Is ater bay. With this seventh day, which is Shabbos, they crown themselves. Valdah Shabbos lav zaminhu. And that's why Shabbos is not a guest, is not invited. And it gives an example, and Reb Shimon Bar Yochai gives a metaphor. He says, Lebra, this is compared to the prince, we said in the beginning of the title. The prince and the guest at the royal table, right? So Lebra, so this is compared to a prince, the Ol Lebeis Sadavoy Ve'imei, who goes to his father and mother's house, and he's at home. He's not Va'achol V'shase, he opens up the refrigerator of his own. He opens up the oven and helps himself, whatever, to a piece of kugel, without needing to be served, because this is his parents' home. B'shata dehu, whenever he wants. Lamalka, now that's compared to a son, and that's Shabbos. Shabbos is at home in holiness. Lamalka de'avalei bra yechida, and now the Zohar continues and more begins to elaborate on the metaphor. Compared to a king that has a one and only child, chaviva de nafshe, in which he's precious, he loves him, the love of his life. Yavle shushvinin lenatrele. He gives for his prince, for the crown prince, he gives him friends to protect him. He gives him security guards, to watch over him. That he should attach himself with them and they should protect him and guard him and the like. The king says, it would be nice to one time invite this security staff who always accompany my son and watch over him, that they too should be able to, come and for a royal feast, come in for a party. So he invites them to the table. The brie of my son. And I can show them, what does he say? To show honor and my affection to them. I guess because they help my son out, because he loves his son. All those who are, assistants to his son, to the prince, he wants to show them also appreciation. So therefore he invites them to the table. So he invited these shushvinin. Now the son doesn't need the invitation. In other words, they need to be sent an invitation. You're invited to the palace. The son, I didn't get an invite. He doesn't need an invite. He's coming automatically. And the son is able to go in to eat, to drink in his father's palace, whenever he wants. Someone who's beautified with holiness and not invited through holiness. So it seems like, who is like you, be'elam Hashem? The level Hashem over here is the level of, we'll soon see about that, is the level of Shabbos. And that level is invited into a level higher than Yud Kei Vav Kei, as we're soon going to see. And it doesn't have to be invited. It's Neder B'Kodesh. He's beautified with holiness, not invited from holiness, like the other days, which is the weekdays, when they fall out on Yom Tiv, which now they are invited to participate in a royal feast. And that's why they're called Mikra'ei Kodesh. They were invited by Kodesh. So now let's continue a little further, and he tells you to learn over here till the words over here, and then we'll see if we can put together heads and tails of what's going on over here. Sheishes yamim teyasam malacha, on 6 days you should do work. Sheishes yamim maya vidite. What's the idea of these 6 days? Rabbi Yossi says, Ksiv ki sheishes yamim asa Hashem es hashamayim v'esa aretz. 6 days God made heaven and earth. Famous passage of the Zohar that Chassidus always brings, it doesn't say in 6 days God created, which means, why? Because the 6 days themselves is the energy that's infused in creation. The Zohar over here is developing the idea, we're going to soon see in a moment, why they're called weekdays. In other words, why do we have to, what does it mean, these 6 days that need to now be elevated? 6 days. What are the 6 days? He's explaining that 6 days are not just days. 6 days are also divine powers. Because it says, it's not just time. When we're talking about days, we're not just speaking about creation. We're talking about a godly feature. It's the source of the 6 days. Well, where do we see that? Because it says 6 days, God created heaven and earth. It should have said in 6 days. In the duration of 6 days, he created heaven and earth. What does it mean 6 days he created? So it's explained to Chassidus that the 6 days themselves are the energy of creation. They manifest in creation. So he says, every one of these days, does its work. And they're called days of work days. That means these are energies of the divine that materialize into the creation, and that's why they're called work days. Rabbi Yitzchak says, why is it called 6 days of the weekdays if they're so holy, if these are godly energies? Rabbi Yossi says, because the world is now being directed through a shliach, through an emissary. In In other words, it's not being that the world as it is during the weekdays, the world as it is not on Shabbos and Yom Tov, or maybe today's days, meaning not in Mashiach's times, but as the world is today, the world is created to be in a state of separateness. So therefore, these divine energies that are the power of creation somehow are assimilated, or they descend into the separateness. And because of that, there is a lacking of the divine in them, and that's why they're called mundane. They're not called holy. They lose their holy status. I mean, all this we're going to later discuss what this means. They're not called holy when they are vested within the creation, within the world, to become like the source, the power of nature. And that's the chiddush, that these days on Yom Tov, these days are elevated into a dosage of holiness, into a connection to the Or Ein Sof, as we're going to see soon. Reb Chia says, begin to Shar Lameh, but now again, I'm telling you right now, the way I'm reading it now, don't take this as the final Pirush, because I didn't even read the Alter Rebbe's Pirush in this. I'm just reading it, and as it's based on the beginning of the Maimer that I learned, giving some speculation of what this is all leading to. Reb Chia says, begin to Shar. Again, he's explaining why they're called weekday. Begin to Shar Lameh by Navidite, because we're allowed to do work. Earlier, Rabbi Yossi says, is because the world is now being conducted, meaning even mitzad, the power of nature itself, unrelated to us, it's being conducted through a shliach. A shliach meaning it's an agent already, not. Rabbi Chia says, because we're allowed to do work. And because we're allowed to do work, the fact that we're allowed to do work, implying as if we create something, we do something, and that's kosher. We're told to do that. But the fact that we're able to pretend as if we have power and so on and so forth, that means that God is not visible. In front of God, you can't do any work. It's only God. Number one, that we don't do anything. We don't lift a finger to make a cent. It's all God directly giving it to us. It's all make-believe that we're doing. But the fact that we are told to do work and to pretend, so we're living in this pretentious state, that means that the Eibishter is concealed and hidden, and that's why we can come and fill, that's why it's called Chol, weekday. Uman delav ikrin kodesh chol ikrin, and that which isn't holy, and because it isn't holy, it's called weekday. It's called mundane. V'ada askina chavraya b'avdala ben kodesh l'chol, and that's why the chavraya instituted, when you make havdalah, you should say ben kodesh l'chol, because what's not kodesh is chol. My havdalah hacha ela kodesh mila begarmayu. Kodesh is a word unto itself. That's where the Alter Rebbe tells you in the beginning over here to learn until this statement. The Zohar goes on, but this is where he tells you to stop. Okay, now that we have a little bit of a synopsis of the passage of the Zohar, let's read inside. Come and see the Yisroel, the Tata Meshapchen, the time when the Jewish people below praise God. And there it continues over there, the whole story, how the Malachim are wondering what we're doing. And the Eibishter says, we have a connection to this guest that's coming because we're coming from the place called Kodesh, Atzoif HaMaimer Amid Beis, until the end of the Maimer on the second side. Kodesh Mila Begarmai, that Kodesh is a word unto its own. So Chuluv and Itchili Yesh Lahav, and at first we need to understand Klal, singing a Maimer. First we understand the general idea of the Maimer and of the Zohar, and then we're going to understand the details of it. B'masha Yom Tov Nikra Ushpiza. This that Yom Tov is called a guest. Shabbos Nimshal Lebra, and Shabbos is compared to a son, to the prince. Yom Tov L'Shushvinin, and Yom Tov is called a guest. And then we're going to understand the specifics. All the details that are discussed in this Maimer of the Zohar. It is known, we know that the holiness of Shabbos, all the different days and different features that there are in Judaism, and we have Shabbos, and then we have tonight. Oh, by the way, tonight is a powerful night. It's Pesach Sheni, related to the idea of Yom Tov already, right? So, and that, in a sense, Pesach Sheni illustrates this idea even more, because Pesach Sheni is not even Pesach, and yet we make it into Pesach. So this idea of taking a mundane day, and it wasn't like the other days were set initially by God, but this is a day that didn't have any specialty. The Jewish people demanded, that God give us another day, and Hashem opened up Pesach Sheni, so I think it fits very well with what we're learning over here, even though he's not explicitly discussing Pesach Sheni. But in any case, so tonight is Pesach, next week Lag BaOmer, and then every day is a different energy in the world. And it means it's a different spiritual quality, different godly, a different aspect of Hashem, multifaceted. Even though God is one, but he expresses himself in all the various different sphirot and attributes and levels and so on and so forth. And when you have a special day, it means another facet, another angle of God is being shown. So Shabbos is different than Yom Tov. You can see it from the halacha. On Shabbos, you're not allowed to do any work. You're not allowed to cook. You're not allowed to carry. On Yom Tov, you're allowed to carry, right? And you're allowed to cook. And the punishments for violating Shabbos and Yom Tov is different. Shabbos is a much severe punishment than Yom Tov. So you see that that means that the holiness is a different holiness. That's why the desecration of the holiness warrants a different response. So he says, so what is the holiness of Shabbos? The holiness of Shabbos is that there is a presence, a revealed presence of the first of the 10 attributes. Sfiras HaChachma is manifest and present in our physical universe on Shabbos, and that's why when we are in the presence of Chachma, it's revealed and projected and what you call it, disseminated into time and space. The holiness of Chachma, which Chachma carries within it the presence of God, because where God dwells, the only Keli for Hashem, we learn in Tanya, is Chachma. That's the first Keli, the first receptacle. So where Chachma is, God is. So that's why Shabbos, Hashem is very present, much more than he is during the week. The holiness of Shabbos. That's why we can't lift a finger and do something for ourselves on Shabbos. No malacha. It's only Hashem. That's the godliness of Shabbos. Moichen da'ava. The moichen and Shabbos, as we learned last week, a long explanation that Chachma is called Abba, is called Father. Yom Tov, and in Yom Tov, B'chinas moichen the Emor. And Yom Tov is a different energy. Yom Tov is also a divine revelation, but from a lower attribute, the second sphera, not the first sphera. Not Sfiras HaChachma that opens up, reveals itself on Shabbos, but a lower sphera, the Sfiras of Bina, which is called a mother, B'derech Klal in general. That's the difference in general. Now, obviously, every day Yom Tov is a different quality, so it's all different, nuanced. Like Shavuos, we know 50 gates, 50th gate of Bina, right? Every Yom Tov has a different quality. And the order of the Yom Tov, and the tefillos of the Yom Tov, and the mitzvahs of the Yom Tov, it's all constant. There's all different aspects of the divine that are appearing and unfolding before us, and into the world and into our souls on Yom Tov. But in general, what is true about all the Yom Tovim is that there's a dominance of Bina in the world. Shabbos Kodesh. It's for this reason Shabbos is called holy, as we refer to Shabbos Kodesh. Like it says, Shabbos ki Kodeshi. You should observe Shabbos because it's Kodesh. V'Yom Tov nikra mikra Kodesh. Yom Tov is called a calling of Kodesh. It's not Kodesh. Yom Tov is a calling of Kodesh. Because Kodesh, ki ha-Kodesh b'b'chinas Chachma. Because Kodesh, when we say something, holiness itself is Chachma. Chachma is holy, as we said earlier, because God himself, the Or Ein Sof, dwells in Chachma. And the Or Ein Sof is Kodesh, removed. Removed from what? Removed from any kind of limitation that can define him. Hashem is not defined by any definitions or any descriptions. Simple with other simplicity, that's why he's removed, separated from everything. He dwells in Chachma. So Chachma is called Kodesh, separated. Bina doesn't have the same dwelling of the Or Ein Sof. And even when the Or Ein Sof dwells in Bina, it's via Chachma, through Chachma, not directly into Bina. So obviously the Or Ein Sof is less in Bina, so Bina is not a level of Kodesh. But what then? Bina is called Mikra Kodesh, a calling of Kodesh. Because we know Chachma and Bina are two friends that are never separated. In order for Bina to work, it needs to have a Nekudas HaChachma, a point of Chachma in it. What's Bina? Bina is the expansion. Taking a point and expanding on it. But there needs to be something to expand on. There needs to be a nucleus. And around the nucleus, you have the protons and the electrons and everything turning around it. But you need to have a nekuda, a point. Bina is called a heichal, a chamber. And there is the center point of the chamber. There's a point, and then you have the whole circle around it, the whole build. So that's why Bina is called Mikra Kodesh, a calling of Kodesh. Holiness is called into it. But Bina itself is not, what does Bina mean? Understanding. And understanding means grasping. Kodesh you can't grasp. Kodesh is elusive. Kodesh is, as we said before, undefined. God as he is still in his infinity. And that's why if you have an encounter with Kodesh, we learned last week, it knocks your socks off. It brings you to total bittul, nullification, no self, in the presence of, because you have nowhere to grasp it even. It just overwhelms you. In Bina means already understanding, grasping. So it must be that the Or Yisrael is much weaker there already. And that's why it's already, the Or Yisrael is kind of masquerading already. It's more camouflaged in something, and you can grasp. So obviously, if you're grasping, it's because you're more distant from the Or Yisrael itself. And that's why Yom Tov is less holy than Shabbos. Desecration of Yom Tov is not as great as the desecration of Shabbos. On the other hand, the fact that on Yom Tov you can have a Bina experience means that it's closer to us. Shabbos is a more potent, more powerful holiness, but it's further than us. Meaning it's more beyond our kelim. We can surrender to it, but we can't take it in so much. And therefore Shabbos might not have such a big impact in terms of transforming us. Because we're not able to identify with its holiness and its godliness and to remake ourselves. Yom Tov, we get a blast of godliness that we can actually internalize. And internalize it and take it. And as a result of that, reformat ourselves, change ourselves. Every Yom Tov is supposed to give us a blast of divine energy to be able to become a mensch, to be able to refine, like we do. Pesach liberates us, and that sets us on a journey of 49 days of purification, of character refinement. Shabbos doesn't do that for us. Yom Tov gives us that, and then each Yom Tov, Yeshua gives us the Torah, and then we have what to work with until Sukkot. And Sukkot comes and gives us simcha and joy, and we can be happy all year, and so on and so forth. Shabbos is a holiness that's a little bit lofty. It's and a little bit more aloof than Yom Tov. And that's because Yom Tov is a more graspable light. Since it's the lights of Bina, which in Bina godliness is already becoming more tangible, more defined, it's almost like Hashem is appearing more in an image to us on Yom Tov than he is. On Pesach, Hashem is like this incredible father that had mercy on his children, right? And picks us up. And then on Shavuos, Hashem is like our teacher. And on Sukkot, maybe again a father, whatever. In other words, you're having the Eibishter more in a certain definable state. As in Shabbos, is a greater godly revelation, because God is more truer to himself, less defined, but as a result of that, further from our kelim. Okay, that's an important distinction to know. The Yom Tov and Yom Tov she'eina ela mikra kodesh. Yom Tov is only a calling of kodesh. Now why is Yom Tov at all called kodesh? If Yom Tov is Bina, and Bina is not Kodesh. Because again, Kodesh means what you can't grasp, and Bina means you are grasping, or else it's not Bina. So if the holiness of Yom Tov is graspable, then it's not Kodesh. And the answer is, in Yom Tov itself, you have to always sense that what you're grasping is not it. In here, there is transcendence. And that's because the Chachma is in the Bina. In Yom Tov as well, there is Moichen da Abba, there is Moichen of Chachma. but it's melubish be'ema, it's enclosed in bina. It's not coming to us directly, it's coming to us already packaged in bina. Bibchinas helam bevad, in a more helamdig way, in a more concealed way. Because only the nether or lower parts of Chachma, we spoke about this quite a lot last week, the Netzach Yesod of Chachma is what is enclothing itself. We learned about this when we were learning about matzah. The Netzach Yesod of Chachma encloses itself in the matzah on Pesach. But that's not in the Yom Tov of Pesach, that's in the matzah of Pesach. It's Chassidus that discusses the difference. There is the Yom Tov of Pesach on its own, and then there is the mitzvahs of Pesach, which is part of the Mikra Kodesh, in which we're trying to get some of the Chachma energy. And what do we get? We get the Netzach Yesod of Chachma that we can connect it into the Bina. And that's why it's Mikra Kodesh, Bovad, Mislabish Be'ema is enclosed in Ema, and even that, as he said, it's a little bit more of a Helam, in a concealed state. And therefore on Yom Tov, we don't respond with such bittul. Yom Tov leaves a little more room for our existence in the fact that you're allowed to cook for yourself. On Shabbos, if you didn't cook on Erev Shabbos, you don't know what to eat, you don't have what to eat. Sorry, Charlie. Why? Because you can't desecrate God's presence. God is there. Who are you even to say you're hungry on Shabbos? I'm not saying Shabbos, you have a mitzvah of Einik Shabbos, you can discuss about it, but Shabbos, there's much less of your mitzvahs. On Yom Tov, you need something, you can carry, there's more room for you. Why? Because God is less present. Because it's not the revelation of Chachma, it's the revelation of Bina, which allows already more. Okay. And the explanation of the matter is, Yovan will be understood bahagdim, ikring in a hefresh min Shabbos le Yom Tov. So to understand this, let's analyze the main difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov, b'mitzvahs ma'asiyos. By analyzing our mitzvah that we have on Shabbos and on Yom Tov, how we conduct ourselves on Shabbos and Yom Tov is going to give us a greater understanding into the dynamics of the godly, from God's side, what's happening in the difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov. The main idea of Shabbos is resting. The mitzvah of Shabbos is resting. What do you do on Shabbos? What are you told to do on Shabbos? Rest. Which is the idea of pleasure. What are we mainly obligated in Shabbos? To rest. You do your work, you rest on Shabbos. And including in the rest, or together with the rest, or one with the rest, is pleasure. Because when you disconnect from your work, the general rule is when a person is very occupied and busy, they can't really experience true deep pleasure. Because the occupation is a distraction. Pleasure, as we're going to see in a few moments, is an experience which happens when a person goes, returns back deep into an inward state, to your inner being. Delight happens in a very inner point of a person's soul. So when you're in a state of investment and expansion outward, then you're distancing yourself from pleasure. Pleasure is when you're going back deep inside yourself. So we can understand that when you're resting, that's what you're doing. Like you're untying your responsibilities, your attachments to anything. Like you're disconnecting from whatever it is that you're getting entangled in, and you're returning back into yourself. That's the idea of relaxing. And in that relaxation, you can experience your deeper self. And when you go deep enough inside of your being, that's when you find your pleasure. That's where the pleasure is. So pleasure that's why Shabbos is both a day of menucha and a day of oineg. It's a mitzvah to have oineg Shabbos. Now the mitzvah of oineg Shabbos is to find pleasure in whatever you can find pleasure. Have pleasure in food, pleasure in a nap, pleasure in, right? Just enjoy the Shabbos. But really, it's an inner soul pleasure, which you're connecting to a deep pleasure on Shabbos, and that's one with rest. Like it says, that the Shabbos you're supposed to call a pleasure. Call Shabbos a day of pleasure. And in this, I don't know what he means, it's interesting lashon. And in this, I don't know exact type of the word idun, Of pleasure, there is only pleasure. Like the delight of food, and the pleasure of the heart, in the resting. And the like. He brings over here actually in the bottom. That resting itself is the pleasure. And he gives you some sources over here. B'shaychas hamenucha v'oinig Shabbos l'kut sichas chelik tezvav. It's a chelik lamed aleph. Two sichas to look at. Maybe for next week's share, I'm gonna, if I remember, to look this up. I'm gonna try to look it up in l'kut sichas chelik tezvav and chelik lamed aleph to have a better grasp on this idea how the menucha of Shabbos and the oinig of Shabbos are deeply intertwined and one with each other. One. Aval ein bo inyan simcha bizgalos klal. In Shabbos, there isn't the idea of simcha, the joy that is in the revealed way. Shabbos is a very inward experience where you're going deep, and therefore it's taking place in a concealed place. Shabbos is, the delights of Shabbos are very concealed, very inward. Yom Tov is a more extroverted experience. That's why Yom Tov, we'd like to be with people. We want to be with family. We want to be with friends. People like going to hotels and socializing. It fits a little bit with the character of Yom Tov. Yom Tov is an explosive energy. Energy is going outward. It's like the experience of Bina. Things are coming into a state, we're going to soon see, in the state of manifestation. Joy, simcha. Simcha is an outward experience. Pleasure is a deep, private, inward experience. The ein mitzvah l'smayach. When people are joyous and they want to be joyous, they'll make a party and all join together. Now, of course, they'll eat, a good piece of sushi and have pleasure at the party. I'm not talking about when you want deep, real pleasure, you do it yourself. Quietly, you're alone, or maybe just with, a very good friend, your spouse, alone, quiet, you're getting away, you're going into that more inner space of self, where you want to disconnect from everybody. And you can go into, that's what a vacation is. It's not vacation, it's just not working, it's recharging with pleasure. You want to connect. And again, the real pleasure is not coming from the things you're seeing or the things you're eating or whatever. The real pleasure is just coming from the deeper pleasure of beingness. And that pleasure you find in when you bring your sense, your awareness deeper into yourself, as opposed to interaction with others, which is outside, which is what you're doing when you want to be besimcha. As in Shabbos, he says, there's no mitzvah at all for simcha. I will be Yom Tov, but on Yom Tov, ikara mitzvah hu simcha. On Yom Tov, the main mitzvah is the joy. Like it says, v'samachta b'chagecha, you should rejoice on your Yom Tov. And the ein mitzvah lis aneg by klal. And there's no mitzvah of oineg Yom Tov. There's a mitzvah of simchas Yom Tov. Now, the two obviously cross over. What do you do for simchas Yom Tov? The same things you do for oineg Shabbos. Ain't simcha ela b'basar b'yayin. The simcha is in meat and in wine. And what do you do for Shabbos? Oineg Shabbos. You eat good, better foods. But still, here the mitzvah is the pleasure, and here the mitzvah is when you have pleasure from the food, it puts you in a really good mood, and you become happy. And obviously, the happiness should be from the fact that you are a Jew, and the food maybe can trigger it. You feel even your body feels good. And the l'chaim that you drank, the fine wine, it sets you into a state of relaxation and happiness, and that allows for the spiritual joy of being a yid and being connected to fill you. And then you want to meet with other people and fabring together and sing together, and that will create even more joy. And then you don't control yourself, and the energy just becomes more and more intense, and you break out into a dance. And then once you can add music to it, you're bringing more people and more energy and more and the joy only gets powerful. And the more it draws you out of yourself to mingle with others and to experience it with others. The hefer sheyesh bein simcha la'oineg, and the difference between simcha and oineg, you do it is no. Shehema kamat beizei feichem b'tivam. They are almost two opposites in their nature. Again, even though they're usually experienced in crossover one with the other, but yet the essential substance of joy and the substance of pleasure are opposites. Oneg, pleasure, is a very modest inyan. It's hidden. V'nelem be'etzem, it's essentially concealed. Like we see to the observing eye, when a person has having some kind of a delight in something, you won't see a change in their face. I mean, so how does he say it's wrecking? He says, you can tell. You can tell. So how can you tell if you don't tell that they're having that you're having oining? Maybe it means it's nicker venera, that you can tell it by yourself. But you have to obviously be absorbed in yourself. You can't see what's happening on your face. So if you know that someone, let's say you gave someone a gift, and you know this is really what they wanted. And I know that there will be the explosion of happiness. Oh, I'm so excited, I'll be telling people, and so on and so forth. But it's that first moment that you give it to them, and they're just looking at it. So you know they're experiencing a very deep delight and sensation, but it's not expressed outward. It means they're not jumping up and down, they're just calm. It's like a deep moment of like, oh. And then later will come the simcha, but not yet. And it's not cheerable. I mean, they can cheer that they're very pleased, but the oineg itself is not, it's taking place. The sensation is deep within the sensor, the one that has that sense. Because it's hidden, it's modest and hidden essentially. It's not something that expands to be revealed. The nature of joy is the opposite. Simcha, joy is like fire. It jumps everywhere. It expands. It reveals itself to everybody. I mean, if you're with someone that's happy, you will know that they're happy. They will make a lot of noise. They will bang on the table. They will sing. They will dance. They will make themselves be heard, because the nature of joy is that it goes outward. It's not contained. It doesn't go into a deep place. It moves to the outside to a state of expression. So people that are happy are very bubbly. They're very expressive. It's not something that is modest and concealed. Like it can be seen to the eye. Anybody that is sameach besimcha, then they become very talkative. They can reveal to you, because they were in such a good mood, they can reveal secrets. They can reveal their heart's thing. And when if the joy is very intense, they won't contain themselves at all, and they'll be moving their limbs very much in a dance, in a song, jumping up and down, clapping. Right? But in delight, it's the opposite. There's no movement in the limbs. It's a silence. It's a deep silence of delight. It's not recognizable. You won't see any ischachos, not only to the out completely that it'll speak, but even you won't even see in their own limbs a movement. There'll be just a silence. As it is now. And obviously there are people who can't be in a state of pleasure, because the moment they're in a state of pleasure, their pleasure makes them happy. And therefore they become very, very talkative immediately, and they need to share, and they might away take pictures. It's like the idea of today's days, everybody taking pictures of every situation. So you're watching the most magnificent scenery, you come somewhere, and immediately you're taking pictures of it. So it's, in a sense, it's contradicting the whole experience. Allow the oinik. Allow yourself to go deep into the experience. Take it in. Be silent. No, but they have to share it immediately. They have to share it with the people that are home. That's already a tenuah of simcha, not of oinik. And in a sense, it contradicts the oinik. It's not allowing you. A picture is good. It'll give you a memory of it later. But you never even... In a sense, it's a little silly because you're having a memory of an experience that you never experienced. I may imagine that. People with their children, the same thing. You have the cutest moments, the sweetest moments, and immediately they're filming it or they're picturing it because they want to have the memory. But you're having a memory of something that you never experienced because at the time that it was happening, you're not allowing yourself to take it in. So be there, take it in deeply, and then you can take out the camera and start sharing this with others. But and the reason for this is, now what's the reason why Oineg is so private, so inward, and Simcha is so outward? And that's because of their source. In which level of their soul are they sourced? Over there, which means in their source, they're also differentiated. In Helem, in concealment and revelation. Because they come from two different sources, Chachma and Bina. Which from there, from the Chachma and the Bina, comes the root of the Oneg and the root of the joy. Because Oneg Shar b'Chachma. The Oneg, pleasure, is rooted in Chachma. Simcha and joy, Shar b'Bina. And Simcha is rooted in Bina. That's the way it is. Oneg is in Chachma and Simcha is in Bina. That's the way it is inside of us. And our Chachma is where pleasure is, the source of pleasure. That's where the experience of pleasure starts. And the experience of Bina is where joy begins. Eima banim samecha. Bina is the source of Simcha. Ki ha-Chachma nikra Eden. Because Chachma is called Eden. What's Eden? Eden is sensation. The delight. Eden means delight. And it says, V'nohar yoytze me-Eden. Nohar is already Bina, the river that goes out from Chachma. But Chachma is called Eden. That means it's the root of all pleasure. V'abina nikra Nohar. And Bina is already called Nohar. Sheyoytze me-Eden. And the very idea that the Bina is yoytze, goes out, means that the very idea of Bina is to express, to come out. Instead of things being in a quintessential potential, in an inward state, closer to the source, where the energy is, where the pleasure is, the energy wants to go out and express itself. Since Bina is all about expression, the Simcha that comes from it has the same nature of outwardness. That's why Simcha propels the person out of himself. And Chachma, since it's the root of pleasure, and Chachma is a very, as we're going to see in a moment, Chachma is a nekuda, dafka not expressing, dafka remaining confined in its potential, in its non-definitive state, and that's why the pleasure is so inward. So the pleasure that it creates, the pleasure that comes from Chachma, is also an experience of inwardness. Ki yadu, as it is gone, ki ha-Chachma nikra Eden, v'bina nikra Nohar, sheyoytze me-Eden, ki yadu, as it is on b'Pirush HaPasuk, Nohar yoytze me-Eden. The Inyan, and the idea is, sha'Chachma b'chinas mekoyer hasagas hasichlius. He's explaining a little better why Chachma, as we're saying, is inward and Bina is outward. Because Chachma is the source of all intellectual understandings or all comprehension. But the Chachma itself is still a state, l'mayla min hasaga, is before it formulating itself into a certain formula that would make it graspable. It's still just the pure energy without form. That's why it's called the concealment of the seichel. And Bina is called nikra giloy ha-seichel, the opposite. Chachma is the helem, the seichel in a concealed state, and Bina is the seichel in a defined state, in a revealed state. And every revelation needs a definition. Needs somewhat of a, right? Ba'asaga dafke kidu as it is known. Alken, and therefore told the children, which what comes from Chachma and Bina, which are called father and mother, what comes from them? They have children. The children, however, are not developed in the father. They're connected to the father. He sparks it, but he's not involved with them anymore. He sparks it and then he's gone. Mother is the one who carries the children for 9 months and produces them and feeds them and develops them and cleans them and bathes them and educates them. And that whole business with the children is mom. Right? Honor of Mother's Day, right? Mother is the one who's the caretaker of the children. Why? The children spiritually represent the midos, and midos, excitement, need to be excited when something is revealed. If something is concealed and hidden and it's unknown, they can't be excited. Once there is bina, and there is a broad information reality that I can touch, feel, tap, absorb, know through I can explore it, so then I can get excited about it. I can love it, fear it, whatever the excitement is. The Alken told us, this Avav Yidavan Fame, Gamkein, Ena Elam B'chinas Bina, only from Bina. Shenikra Eima Banim, she's called the mother of the children. Liyoisa Kvar B'chinas is Galus Canal. She's already in a state. Bina is a state of revelation. V'chol is Galus Uba B'chinas is Pashtos. And every his Galus, every revelation comes in a way of his Pashtos, of expansion. So part of that expansion and the continuation of that expansion is that it expands not only in the mind, it expands into the heart as it becomes excited. Not only do I understand it in all angles and details, but I'm also getting excited about it. Till the substance of midas is also born. And midas are even more revealed, because intellect is something that is a state of revelation, but the state of revelation of the idea in the world of ideas. Excitement already caused this idea to begin to have an effect outside of the world of the ideas. Because if I'm excited about it, as an emotional excitement, so then I feel I have to teach this idea, make this idea real in the world, do something, change things based on this idea. So excitement will lead to thought, speech, and action, which make it very concrete in the reveal, bring it into total revelation. Midas are more revelation than Bina is. But from Chachma that's called concealed still, it's still too detached, too removed, that it should come from it, Toldes HaMidos, the birth of Midas. Chachma doesn't spread anything. Bina spreads outward. Midas, this midah, that midah, in all directions. And that's why joy, which is a product of Bina, also has that same energy of outwardness. It comes into a state of revealing. Since the root of simcha is the contemplation in hasaga and grasping, dafke ki yidu, as it is known. But pleasure hu behelem is taking place in the inner recesses of the depth of the experience, at the inner point of energy before the energy takes on any form. And that's where the pleasure is. Because it's rooted in the chachma, which is concealed, as we said earlier. And that's why chachma is called Eden, which Eden is pleasure, the core of pleasure. Which is the source of because we're dealing over here on a level of pleasure that's before feeling the pleasure. It's a pleasure that's it's the source of pleasure. And then later, this pleasure becomes a experience of pleasure that later you'll feel in the heart. Hamistaf believe. It will be experienced in the heart. The Yeshadayan, now, as we're going in, just like in Bina, he went and he took the expansion of the Bina more out from the Bina into the Midos. Chachma, he says, is very private, very concealed, very inward, very non-elaborate and defined, but dafka in a state of non definition, and therefore unknowable, and that's where the pleasure takes place. And now he's gonna trace the pleasure even deeper in the soul to a even more undefinable, to a state of even higher non-beingness. The point of Chachma compared to Bina is that Chachma is ayin, it's non-beingness. Bina is already definitive. Chachma is still non-being, and he's going to bring it even back to a deeper non-beingness, because the real root of pleasure is not even Chachma, it's in Keser, crown, which crown is not even a potential of an idea. We're dealing with the Orein Soif in its pure purity. There is a source to this source. There's a makar for Eden. That's the lights of Keser that shine in Chachma, and that's really where the pleasure of pleasure really is. Which this Atik, as he calls it, the lights of Keser that are in Chachma, it's the lowest level of the Orein Soif. The fact that we're even talking about Spherois, Keser, is because it's the tail end of the Orein Soif. It's the shorish, the root to all the emanations. It is known that this is called Atik, which means the ancient one. And that's where the root of this elusive pleasure is. With you is the source of life. Pidish makar kol atanugim, the source of life, which means the source of all pleasure. V'dai l'meiv. So Chachma is connected to this very private, undefined, unknown, where pleasure is. Shabbos, this pleasure opens up a little bit. Contradictory to the nature of the pleasure is to be elusive and very private, very inward. Shabbos, the worlds, or rather we'd say the worlds are elevated into this pleasure. Instead of saying that the pleasure reveals itself outward, but more that the worlds are elevated into this pleasure. That's why what do we do on Shabbos? We elevate. We go away from all the stuff that define us. I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a this, I'm a that. Shabbos, you're not. You're just beyond all definitions. Go back into your pre-existent state. Shabbos, the main mitzvah is an oineg. Shabbos is when it's illuminating the light of Chachma. Shenikra Eden, which is called Eden. And that's why it says regarding Shabbos, Shabbos oineg. Shabbos, you should call to it an oineg. And therefore, eina mitzvah b'simcha b'his galus. Shabbos, there is no mitzvah for joy in a revealed way. Elarak b'pchenes helem de Chachma. Shabbos doesn't call for any great revelations. Shabbos calls for silence. Helem de Chachma, the concealment of Chachma. The main mitzvah of Shabbos is not in what you're doing, it's what you're not doing. You're not working. And so much so that in Shabbos it says that you have to rest from finding your desires, meaning from doing things you want to do, retract, and even more, v'daber davar, even to speak. Speak is revelation. Shabbos, you're saying silence, don't talk, don't express yourself. It's the opposite of expression. Afilu dibur asa. Even speech is forbidden on Shabbos on some level. And we know what Chazal say, that Bekushi, it was difficult for the sages to permit us to even speak words of Torah on Shabbos. So what are you supposed to do? Can't speak words of Torah? I can't do anything? No, you're not supposed to do anything. You're supposed to be on Shabbos, not do. And not even talk. So the sages didn't have a problem with Torah on Shabbos. They had a problem with speaking Torah, because speaking is opposite of Shabbos. Shabbos is not speaking. Shabbos is a withdrawal into the energy pool before it expresses itself in the various different expressions of koches hanefesh, actions, activities. It's like you're going into the predefined you to meet life itself when it's still in its full intensity. You realize once something becomes defined, it becomes limited, then most of its energy, its real infinity is diminished. Go back into your infinite self. Touch the infinite core of your being. Shabbos is core. Go to your core. Go inward. So don't talk. Talking is a distraction. When she's barber, so if a Maayon, like it says in the end of the Maayon, being in Kodesh, the word Kodesh, Mila Bagarmayu is a word unto its own. But on Yom Tiv, she'ikra mitzvah bihis galos hasimcha. Yom Tiv, the main mitzvah, is revelation of joy. It's a whole different godly energy that it's a godly energy that drives revelation. It's so interesting. Why is it interesting? Because this seems to go completely the opposite of what we were learning last week. Last week we were learning that from the energies of Bina evokes within you desire and passion to rise and run away from the world, to the point that you don't want to have anything to do with the material of the world and so on and so forth. You just want to melt into the Ein Sof. And Dafka, the experience of Chachma, in which you have an encounter with God Himself. What happens there? You can hear what God wants, and then that drives you to express yourself, to get back into the row. So how are we going to reconcile? And here we're saying total opposite. Shabbos is an inward experience. It's Chachma, and Bina, and Yom Tov is an outward experience, which engages you to be more Bihis Galos, revealed. Good question. So the answer is one is connected to the other. Because Shabbos is so inward, as you're going in on Shabbos, so if Shabbos is so delightful, Shabbos is so awesome, why do we stay in Shabbos? Why do we stay on vacation? We should stay in Shabbos. Who wants to leave? We should never, if you go back into pre-existence, you go back into this infinite pool of life, which is the ultimate state of pleasure, why in the world are you going to make a Sunday? You're going to make a Monday again. And why is God, after He moves into, why is He going to create another? And the question is on Hashem, the question is on us. Why even have a world? Why get back involved? It's like a Shabbos, the best kept secret. But don't reveal it to people. You're going to give people a little taste of Shabbos, they're never going to want to leave it. The answer is, when you're in this inward place, you hear, in the silence, you hear the desire of the infinite to be expressed in vessels. And from that place is where you go outward. So Shabbos, because it's so inward, from the deepest inner point wants to be expressed in the most external outer part of vessels. So Shabbos drives the week. Shabbos pushes you back into the week. That's because you experience the Bina experience itself, the Yom Tov experience itself is dangerous. The Yom Tov experience would not drive you back into the week. Yom Tov, because Yom Tov is Bina, and Bina wants, you're busy with your excitement, as we spoke last week, you don't even hear. You need to be totally silent to hear the desire of God. I want to have a home in the world. It takes total bit. That's why you have to mix Shabbos energy into Yom Tov. Because if you don't mix Shabbos energy into Yom Tov, you're going to end up with a nega type of situation. Yom Tov will go out of hand. And that's why every Yom Tov has Shabbos Tiga mitzvahs in the Yom Tov. As Chassidus explains how matzah on Pesach is to bring the Oyer Abba, the bittul of Shabbos, into Yom Tov. Lulav, Shofar, and Rosh Hashanah, every Yom Tov. Every Yom Tov, you have a special mitzvah to bring the Oyros of Abba into Emor, because Yom Tov itself could be dangerous. That's just a reconciliation for the question that we might have regarding what we're learning. In any case, back to the Maayon. On Yom Tov is a term for Shemei Bo B'chinas Orema. Shu Dafka Bizgalos, it's Dafka reveal. Ulechei Nikra Shabbos Kodesh. That's why Shabbos is called holy. Yom Tov Mikra Kodesh. Yom Tov is called the calling of holiness. Omnam, however, Ein Oid Ema Meir Mebilti Yichud Ba'ir Abba. That's what we're just saying. The lights of Bina can't be independent. There needs to be in it a little bit light of Chachma. Shrei Nikra Trein Rei and the Loy Misparsh. They are called two friends that never separate. So Bina on its own has to have a nekudas hachachma to be excited about, and number two, he really doesn't go go into it that much over here, but at least not in the beginning of the Maimer, that we have to increase the Chachma energy in the Yom Tov. That's our job as the Jewish people, to affect the Yom Tov by bringing more Chachma, more Kodesh into Yom Tov on its own. That's not Kodesh. Elachein Nikra Mikra Kodesh, it's called the calling of holiness. Because the Netzach Hod Yesod of Chachma, Melubashim, Be'ema are enclosed in Ema and Bina, Behelim in a concealed state. So it's there. You have the Kodesh element in Yom Tov as well. But it's benign. It's soft. On Shabbos, it's the opposite, as he says. B'Shabbos u'behepach. Sha'oineg ikr, the main experience of Shabbos is the inwardness, the oineg, and the delight. V'asimcha tafel. There is joy on Shabbos too. Actually, there is one place, a source where the Rebbe brings many times, where it says, "U'biyom simchaschem u'mayadeichem," in the days of joy and Yom Tov. So what does it mean, the days of joy, which is not Yom Tov, because the biyom simchaschem. So there is a Sefri or something, it says, a form of a Medrash, which says, Elu HaShabbos, that's Shabbos, which tells you that Shabbos, there is also an inyan of Simcha. And the Rebbe is leaving room for that over here. He says the Oineg is the dominant one, and Simcha is secondary, is Tafel. Ki b'bchinas ha'helem, hu nichlal ba'oineg, because in the concealed Oineg, obviously when you're experiencing this deep delight, you're having the seeds of joy there, but it's overpowered by the pleasure. Yom Tov, but on Yom Tov, the character and the chemistry of the day is Bina, and therefore the experience down here is primarily this projecting, powerful, explosive, outward driving energy, and that's the Simcha, that's the joy. Ikar is the main thing. Va'oineg, and within the joy, there is also the pleasure. Va'oineg nichlal behelam b'simcha. And the oineg is absorbed in a hidden way in the simcha. The eine is galus rak simcha, and what is revealed is only the joy. Avol b'Shabbos, but on Shabbos ein simcha be'is galus. The joy is not revealed, rak oineg, only the pleasure. Ki hu ikr, because that's the main thing. V'hu bab ketivoi b'pchinas hatzne kanel. And Shabbos comes as its nature is more modest, kiniska, as we said earlier, v'dailamev. And after this introduction, we turned over the page a little while ago. I don't know if I mentioned it. Over here on the pages, it's 632. We're going to understand the general idea of this mimer. And he explains the difference between the difference that there is between Shabbos and Yom Tov, but derech klal in a general way. Shabbos is not called, it is invited from Kodesh. Yom Tov is called that it's invited from Kodesh. It's invited from Kodesh. It itself is not Kodesh, but it gets an infusion of Kodesh. It becomes enclosed in it. The Oyer Abba, an infusion of the lights of Chachma, of oineg, of pleasure, of chachma, behelem in a concealed state, meaning in a more background state in Yom Tov. K'niskaliel, as we mentioned earlier. But to understand the specifics of this mimer, in this that he made the primary difference between them. In which he gives a mashal, and he explains it a mashal to a king that had a one and only child. That's Shabbos. Shabbos is like this one child. And then the child had friends, the king appointed buddies. These are the bodyguards. And the king says, let's make a party for them as well and invite them. So even though they're not ordinarily featured in the palace or invited to the palace, but they get to come as special guests. And that's the idea of Yom Tov, weekdays that come. The Yom Tov nikrish shvinin, and Yom Tov are called guests. Yuvan bahagdim, this will be understood by first prefacing, oid inyan echad klalim. So the Rebbe says, I'm going to take you into another important general idea. Amavur bepardes, that's explained in Pardes, v'gam bekizvei Arizal. It's explained both in Pardes, which is the more ancient Kabbalistic writings, the Ramak, Ramosha Kurdavu, and then we have the more modern teachings of Kabbalah, which is from the Arizal. and there's a purpose I'm calling it modern versus the more conservative, older teachings, is because that's what he's going to explain in the Maimer, that there is a difference between the Arizal's Kabbalah and the Ramak's Kabbalah in the understanding of the harmony that exists in the spheres. But in both these places, it explains the general idea. V'hu b'tam, in this, that it explains the reason. Now, this is a complete different subject of what we learned. The Maimer is now going to explore another idea. And then later, we're going to converge the ideas together. We know that in every sphera has a name of God. The spheres, the attributes of Atzilus, are also connected to various different names. In addition to calling this attribute Chesed and Gevura, it also has, we know Hashem has 7 unerasable names, Shiva, Shema, Shein, and Mechakim. So the 7 names are connected to the 7 spheres. So when the Eibishter's energy flow is flowing through Chesed, then we call God Kale. And when God is manifesting his life flow through Midas HaGevura, he's called Elokim. So in each one of the spheres, through Yisroel, Hashem is called Shakai. Through Malchus, he's called Adna. Through, Netzach and Hoid, he's called Tzvakos. And which one is individual for Netzach and which one is individual for Hoid, I'm not sure. And then, Teferes, what's with Teferes? Teferes is Yud Kei Vav Kei. So the question is, isn't Yud Kei Vav Kei God's general name? And we know that Yud Kei Vav Kei is a name of God that far surpasses all the other names. It's called Shema Etzem, it's the essential name. And we say that that is reserved for Teferes. So the question is, why is Teferes Dafka merit to have Hashem's general name, while the other spheres only have specific names? Not in the other midas. Midas HaChesed is Shem Kale, and Midas HaChesed is the name Kale. Midas HaGevura is Shem Elokim, and the Midah of Gevura is the name of Elokim. But Teferes is Dafka Shem Havaya. Dafka Teferes is Shem Havaya. And you know what the idea is? Midas HaTeferes, because what's Havaya? Havaya is referring to God himself as he is a source for everything. Kale, already Hashem has taken on a presentation of kindness. In the name of Elokim, God is presenting himself as a stern judge. But in compassion, we're saying Havaya. Now, why? Compassion is also specific. Hashem is now being compassionate. But we're going to see compassion in itself is a blend. The other attributes are each one a unique energy, which is specific. But compassion is a combo, it's a combination, it's a blend. And because it's a blend, it is related to the power of God that precedes everything and precludes everything, and because of that, can include everything. The reason the Eibishter can include and harmonize and synchronize everything together to work in perfect balance and in perfect synchronization is because the Orein Seif is not this or neither that, because of his non-specification, and when there is a touch of that infinite potential that is neither this and neither that, but could be everything, when we can connect to that state of the divine, that energy causes unification. So in order for Teferes to function as Teferes, which is a harmony blend of Chesed and Gevura, which are two diametrically opposed spheres, is because in Teferes, so even though Teferes itself is not purely the Orein Sof, that's why it's Spheres HaTeferes, and it has a certain characteristic, the character of mercy and the light and truth, whatever, but because Teferes exhibits within it the tolerance and the ability of harmonizing others, it must be that in it there is an investment of Hashem himself prior to his defining himself into every definitions, and that's why Dafke Teferes has the zechus and the merit to be a host for Yud Kei Vav Kei, and therefore be called by the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's the idea that he's explaining. Can include within itself two opposites, chesed and gevura, chesed and gevura. As we know that the attribute of mercy, which we know is related to Teferes, as it is known, it includes two opposite chesed and gevura. Because on itself these two are opposite. In judgment, in pure din, there is no rachamim and there's no chesed. There's just din. And we learned that in last week's parsha. It says, don't be compassionate to a poor man and judge in court. You have to be, here is a place where the divine attribute of judgment is manifesting, and therefore everything that is happening over here has to be within the framework of judgment. And over there is no room for compassion and no room for kindness. You don't forego what is the situation. That's the way things have to be judged. And on the other hand, when we're in the department of chesed, when we're in the headquarters of chesed, there is no consideration for din at all. Ve'ena chesed soivel din klal. Kindness wants kindness. Doesn't care if you're worthy or not worthy. Kindness just wants to give, and love, and love, and love, and love. And God's capacity for love and patience and giving for everybody and endlessly. They're two opposites. But mercy is a combination of both. It considers both and harmonizes them. Tolerates both. Because the judgment calls for what? Onesh, punishment. So let's say a court, maybe the judge can't be compassionate. Has to give the verdict. But the king, you just had the story. The mamish had the story happening just now, the last 2 days in the news. You had the judge handed down a verdict to this Texas woman who wanted to keep her store open. Okay, she says she wants to feed her kids. The judge said, you broke the law. You broke the law, either apologize or I'm sending you to jail. She didn't apologize, gegangen. He locked her up. In a sense, the judge has to follow the law. Now the governor is coming and says, come on, this lady wants to feed her kid, where's your compassion? And then the Supreme Court got involved, whatever, and they let her out today. So they overriding. But in a sense, you can't have complaints to the judge. Judge has to be the one who enforces law. That's his Indian. He's the judge. He's called a judge. He has to judge based on the law, giving the law. They're not above the law, but their role, that they're playing, is to run the government. And to run a government, not the law of the government, to run a government, but you have to consider the people and the way it's going to affect them. There's more consideration. But there you also have the compassion. She wants to feed her children. And you can't lock her up because of that. Let her out. So let her out. So what is... And it's not like the governor, what's his name, Abbott or whatever, it's not like he said that she didn't break the law. And it's not that he said she's not guilty. She's guilty. She deserves... But how can a mother from children wants to feed her children? She's not a malicious person breaking the law. She's doing something because she needs a livelihood. So that means it's tolerating. On the one hand, it's kindness because it's letting her out of jail. It's removing the punishment. On the other hand, it's not like no problem, everything is good, do whatever you want. That's chesed. No problem. You need it, do it. Yeah, you're good. No, it's illegal. You broke the law. You deserve to be punished. But you know what? I have compassion on you. So it's taking into consideration the judgment, but yet acting following the kindness. So it's a chibur and attachment of both. El Mitzad HaRachman Yopoter V'hu Chesed, and that's Chesed. Reyesh kan beis afeichem b'noise echad. It's tolerating in one space two opposites. V'im kein be'echrich, so be'echrich we have to say sheyesh b'midazu. So how do you have, if these two things clash and they're at war with each other, how can they both reside in one place? How can they get along so nicely in Tiferes? You have to say that in this midah there is Eiza Oira Meir Uba Mamakam Madrege Gavoya. You have a radiance from a very high place. She'ein Sham Beiza Feichem Alalu Klal. This is a place that doesn't have opposites. Liyoisei Naila Mekobchinas Midah Klal. Because it's beyond Midas. Once you're already dropping into the world of Midas, attributes, Chesed Gevura, specific energies, there is fire and water, they don't get along. But since Tiferes is tapping the level, Hashem himself, on Hashem himself you can't define him neither as Chesed, because it doesn't have any definition. So the Orin Seif, and all the way down to that revelation of Orin Seif that we spoke earlier, that's Meir that shines in Keser, in Atik Yoimin, and eventually even makes its way down into Chachma, because we said Chachma is also still a pure, simple dwelling of the Orin Seif. So that light that's over there touches Tiferes. And when it drips a drop of that into Tiferes, it gives in the Tiferes because of the non-specific nature, or if you can call it beyond nature of this oyer, that it's not defined by anything. It empowers even the place where there is definitions and there is specifications for everything to harmonize and come together. And this level is the level of Keser. Sheyesh boy, which over there it resides, the substance of the Orin Soif, of the infinite light. Which is above and separated from every element of midah. Kamaimer, as we say about the Eibishter himself, lav the islak tzedek yediyah. It's not that you have a specific tzedek, which is one midah samalchos. The lav mikol in and midas klal. You don't have any of these midas. V'hu nikra, and he is called shleimusa dekula, the one who is perfect of everything. Doesn't mean he includes everything. He precludes everything, but because of that, he can include everything. Ki oir echad, because it's one simple light. Pashut betachlos apshitas, which is simple with utter simplicity. Mebilti yischalek lechalakim. It's not divisible into divisions. Bemidos in attributes, usfiros adayin, or bemidos in various emotions, or spherois or attributes adayin. Ekamaimer, and as we say, antchad, you are one. V'loy b'chushpan, you are not yet within the chushpan, within the cheshpan, which in the calculation of attributes, this one or that one. As it has been explained earlier, from that perfect light that is shalem b'shleimus, that is perfect in perfection of Ein Sof, meir gam efes kitzeyu, the tail end of it, something of it, of that state, is shining. B'midas Tiferes is experienced, is illuminating in the midah of Tiferes, to give Tiferes dafka that power. Since it's within the power of this midah to tolerate and to carry within itself two opposites, we have to say, it's because she carries, or Tiferes has within itself, the shleimus of Keser that is beyond these two opposites. Because in the level of Keser, there isn't any midos, so it affects that effect on Keser as well. Klal kaniskaliel. That's why, see, again, it's very important to differentiate. Tiferes is not Keser. Tiferes has the limitations of spheroids. But this tenua, this nuance, this attribute, this ability that Tiferes has to transcend the very specifics that make up her own character, and to be able to bring peace between conflicting energies is because it's attached to the levels of the divine that are the source for both opposites. And that's why, but over there it's a source for the opposites before the opposites became opposites. Here, even after the opposites are opposites, they harmonize through Tiferes. Because Tiferes has within it from Keser, which comes from Malchus the Ein Sof, Shenikra Noira Sehilos. That's why Tiferes is also called Noira, the awesome one, because the Ein Sof itself is called Noira Tehilos, too awesome to praise. Is explained elsewhere. A pasuk ki imcha haslicha leman tivare, as explained in that pasuk. So this idea, which has been explained by the Ramak and by the Arizal, and that's the reason why Tiferes is called Havaya, which Havaya is referring to God Himself, not to a specific attribute. Because this relates to the general name of Hashem, which includes the general shleimus perfection of God, not a specific name with a specific power. Like the name of Kael, which is in Chesed Levad, V'Shem Elokim, and the name of Elokim, B'Gvura Belvad, which is only in Gevura Chulu. Only Tiferes is Zoiche to that name, which teaches us as well that if we can make shalom and peace with each other, we merit a much higher presence of divinity to dwell amongst us. No matter how right and how correct we are in our passionate and driven we are in our opinions and holy opinions and so on and so forth, like the lesson of the students of Rabbi Akiva that we spoke about so much last week, the intolerance by being lacking the Tiferes, which is lacking the bittul to the Eibishter himself, which enables opposites to be together. So now the Alter Rebbe is taking it a step further. Up till now, we were following the teachings of the old Kabbalists and the new Kabbalists as well, and that is that Tiferes is unique in that it can be called Havaya, because why? It's still connected to Keser because it's Noisa Hafechem. It can tolerate opposites. It's a peacemaker. However, now we're going to extend it a step further and going to say that in truth, according to the new Kabbalists, which is from the Arizal and onward, the teaching of the Arizal revealed something unique. And the Arizal revealed that in truth, the entire emotional spectrum, the entire configuration of the divine emotions, called Ze'eran, but not only the center of it, which is Tiferes, but even the Chesed, which is, as we said before, is specific, and Gevura, which is specific, and Netzach and Hod, and each sphere, which is specific, which as a result of that specification, it should not have within it the ability to be called Havaya, because it's only Chesed and only Gevura. Yet the Arizal says we can apply Havaya to all the spheres. Why? Because all the spheres that exist now are spheres of Olam HaTikun. And since they're of Olam HaTikun, they're all blendable. They all get along. In other words, this nature of Tiferes is not only in Tiferes, it's primarily realized in Tiferes, but it's less featured in the other spheres, but it's also featured in all the spheres. And that's why all the spheres of the world of Tikkun, even the more extreme ones, are tolerant of each other and get along with each other. And that's something that the Arizal taught, and it was not there in the writings of the Ramak. Because the Ramak was still belonging to a time period when Tohu was dominating. It's an amazing idea. Inside the Maayon, he doesn't say it so explicitly, but in the Ha'aris, he brings various different sources to this. In Eitz Chaim, And I was so happy that I had the Sefer Igris Ramaz, the letters of Ramosha Zakusi. So over there he says, let's not go back to the teachings of the Ramak from the world of Tohu. Because in the old order, the way things were in the beginning was that the spheres did clash with each other. But then the Eibishter created the new system. And the new system, even though it was there from before creation, started to becoming more revealed as we're getting closer to Mashiach through the Arizal. And the earlier teachings of Kabbalah were more influenced by the characterization of Tohu, the systems of Tohu, and they did not yet fully assimilate the understandings of Tikkun. And this was only revealed, the Arizal, the Eitz Chaim, the Arizal says it beferish. I mean, Rabbi Chaim Vital says it. It was only revealed later as we're getting, the Tikkun is happening more and more. As a result of Torah and Mitzvahs, we're causing more of the Tikkun. So it's becoming more known and more behizgalus from above, the secrets of Olam HaTikkun, which is called Shema HaChadash, which this is the ability to harmonize. Mitzad this, from this perspective, there is, like we know in Sfira Sa'omer, for instance, we're counting every day, we're counting, today is not just Chesed, it's Gevura Sheba Chesed. Hey, how do you get Gevura in Chesed? The answer is, Chesed tolerates Gevura. How is that possible? Because it's from the world of Tikkun. In a sense, what we're really saying is that Tiferes is the dominant sphere in the world of Tikkun and influences all the other spheres, that they all become the family of Tiferes. That they all become I don't know what word would it be, to become harmoniable. That's a good new word. Let's read it inside him. All the specific midas of Atzilus, achar bechinas hatikun, after the tikkun system was applied, the shema, the adam of shema, of adam, and that's what adam means. Adam is gematria ma. Adam means a being that has everything. That's what the uniqueness of Adam is. Animals, we know, they don't have that being. Animals have one character. A human being, is explained in Chassidus and other Memorim, is the only one that possesses within himself. He can be angry, he can be kind, he can be this, he can be that, he can be compassionate, he's not one-track minded. Animals are one track. He can be a kind animal, or it can be a mean animal, but one of the two. Humans, because that's Adam. Adam is the image of God above, the one that is able to unify everything. Which is called Zeir Anpun, bibchinas partzuf, in a manner of partzufim. That's the chiddush of the Arizal. Chiddush of the Arizal is that there are partzufim. Partzufim means configurations which create the ability of having millions and millions of spheres. Those who followed the Kabbalah of the Ari were attacked by those who were still studying the ancient Kabbalah based on the writings before the Ari, and they were saying, what are you talking about? How do you get all these spheres from? There's only 10. It says Beferish in Zohar, it says 10 and not 11. And the Ari, and the Reb Chaim Vital answers, because you're not, yes, there's only 10, but because of the blending of the spheres one with each other, because the concept called a partzuf means a configuration where things become harmonized one with each other, it becomes way more than the 10 spheres, and so on and so forth. Kemevur bekizvi Arizal, as it is explained, Dafkin, the writings of the Ari, Gamuhu nikra b'shem Havaya bovad. So the entire Zeir Anpin is also in general called Havaya, not only the Tiferes element of it. V'loi b'shem achar prati, and not with a specific name, with a different name. Yes, if you're zeroing into a specific element of the Zeir Anpin, you will say Kale, you will say Elokim. But if you're looking at Zeir Anpin as a whole, it's Shem Havaya. And he's going to show you that it's possible to have Shem Havaya even when you're looking at a specific element of the Zeir Anpin. There too, there is Havaya in its name. There is Havaya in Chesed, there is Havaya in Gevura, not just in the sum totality. Why? Because even the details and sub-details are all harmonized with each other. Kihine, now he explains, this that it's written in Pardes. Pardes is a writing of Kabbalah from the Ramak, who was the main teacher of Kabbalah before the Arizal taught. The Shem Havaya Einei Elo B'Teferes. The Shem Havaya is only in Teferes. Hainu Lefi HaKabbalah Shalom Mekubalim Arishonim. That follows the early Mekubalim. Shalifnei Arizal. That's before the Arizal. It's amazing that when it comes to Nigla, when it comes to the revealed part of the Torah, there's kind of the understanding that you rely on the earlier ones more than you rely on the older ones. Like a Amiris can't argue on the Tana. Tana can't argue on, like, the earlier you were, closer to the origins, the more reliable you were. When it comes to Kabbalah, it works the opposite. Now, I'm not saying that the new modern day Kabbalists, anybody that calls himself a Kabbalist. I'm talking about those that were accepted by the Jewish people as those Mekubalim that received transmissions from above, like the Arizal who received from Eliyahu Hanavi, the Baal Shem Tov who received from Achia Sheloini and the like. So the latter have authority more than the earlier, because these are all revelations from the future. Kabbalah is the revelations of the new Torah coming in the days of Mashiach. So we're getting more revelation. With times of dinim, he says, times of concealment, times of gullus, times of harsh blockages, the Mekubalim they had an image, they didn't get it straight to the fullest. Shalayadu adayin, they didn't know yet at that time, b'bchinas hatikun. They didn't have that understanding of tikkun al derech HaKabbalah shala Arizal b'pratis. Like the Arizal received a teaching regarding the worlds of the systems of tikkun. Rak b'eschalkos asfiras bilvad liyud. The early Mekubalim, spoke about the division of spherais to 10. Shurak b'bchinas hatoyu. But that's within spherais, that's still the stage of tohu, b'chinas hakudim. As we discussed so many times, there's two systems of tohu and tikkun. Tohu is a primordial system where the attributes came out clashing with each other. And it's based on the concept which the Medrash says, and when God initially created the world, he experimented. He created worlds and they burst. He destroyed them. He created and he destroyed. Which according to the deeper meaning means not physical world. It means that he emanated spheros that didn't last. Why didn't they last? Because they were clashing with. There's different aspects to this. I'm just doing it very bekitzer, because they clashed with each other. Each one, and they were extremists. They didn't get along one with each other. So that's the idea of tohu, b'bchinas akudim. That's also called akudim. Akudim means spots. Each one came out as a spot. Api Kabbalah's Arizal kadidua. But afterwards, when the Arizal came, they did not have the teaching of the Arizal. Al kein loy matzu b'chinas shleimus da'orin soiv. That's why they didn't find the shleimus of God himself, not his spheres. The spheres didn't have shleimus. Each one was a representation of another potential, but one specific potential. So it could not facilitate Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Orein Soiv. Even according to their system, Teferes had that blend, that tikkun de ge'elam u'bavadan. In other words, to them, the world of tikkun was limited only to Teferes. But after the Arizal came along and revealed the more specific element of tikkun, of Adam, of the man of Atzilus, parts of Zoh, which is that there is a whole parts of. Parts of means a configuration. And a configuration means where things blend with each other of the Zeir Anpin. So there is Shem Havaya, gam b'chol prat, mipratei hamidos tezah. There is Shem Havaya in all the details of the midos of the Zeir Anpin. Kihine, for behold, he explains, Shirish inyanat tikkun. Why? How can there be Havaya in the details? Because the main inyan of tikkun rak b'chinas hiskalalus. The main idea of tikkun is the harmony where things integration one with each other. Kidu, as it is known. The midas hachesed liyoyse klula migvura. Since midas hachesed is what? Klula migvura. Gvura shaba. So for example, we do Tzfiras Aimer. So the first night of Tzfiras Aimer was Chesed Sheba Chesed. Second night of Tzfiras Aimer was Gevura Sheba Chesed. So you see that there is Gevura in Chesed. Now in Sphira, we are not getting into more details. We're stopping just by the Sphira and its seven subfolders that are in Chesed. But in truth, There is chesed, shebechesed, and then there is chesed, shebechesed. And let's put it this way, let make it easier. The seven spheres, let's call them the parents. The details, let's call them the children. So in the children of chesed has a son, chesed, he has a son, gevura, and he has a son, has siblings. Right? So there is gevura, shebechesed. Now there's grandchildren. There is chesed, shebechesed. That's sugar sweet, only sweetness. Dangerous sweetness, just pure sweet. Then there is gevura shebechesed. So this is the gevura of chesed. Right? So and you can go further and further and make all kinds of blends. Not your making. That's the way the world is created, through the variations and variations and variations. And every single thing, the reason why the world is so differentiated is because the midas of God become so colorful once the blends become they go so far out. And there's so many different nuances of it. So for example, he says, midas ha-chesed li'asaklula me-gevura. So there is gevura, that's gevura shebechesed. And then gevura sheba klula me-chesed. The gevura that's in chesed has within it chesed too. Chesed shebegevura shebechesed. V'oisei chesed kol loyd megevura. And that chesed, which is the grandson, which is the chesed shebegevura shebechesed, has within it gevura as well. So that last gevura would be gevura shebechesed shebegevura shebechesed. Like he says over there, nikra oz gevura shebechesed shebegevura shebechesed. Then it's called gevura shebechesed. That's a blend. Ukeyotze b'zeh b'midas hagevura. Now in gevura you have the same thing. That's in chesed. In gevura you have chesed shebegevura, and then you have gevura shebechesed shebegevura, and then you have chesed shebegevura shebechesed shebegevura. See, as it's set up. U'mischabrim yachad, and it's all unified b'skalalos mechesed gevura, where there is an integration of chesed and gevura on imtzon. Mi bein shneim, as it comes from these two midos, by fanim rabim v'shoinim in many variations. At she'ein b'metzias, kam dava prati shebepratis min hamidos, to the point where you don't have even a specific of a specific of a specific where it won't be a blend. The blend is literally on the cellular level. That means on every aspect of it, wherever you will go, you'll be able to find everything, all the colors. It's never just an extreme one. Breaking it, it's like you want to isolate only the chesed. Doesn't work, because in every element, it's blended and blended and blended, and that's the world of tikkun. Why? Because tikkun is rooted in the Or Ein Sof, on God Himself. And in the Eibishter, He's neither chesed gevura nor this, and therefore, since tikkun is really rooted in the pnimius of the Or Ein Sof, and the flavor of, you can say, or the non-flavor of the Or Ein Sof carries through, it will cause harmony in every level. And it will have everything in everything. That's why we say that in every Jew is every Jew. And in every... And the truth is, you see even physicality. That in the DNA of the tiniest particle of the body, you have the entire DNA of the whole body. You have the brain and then everything. Everything is bihizkalalos. You won't find a specific element of midah that won't have everything together. This, just like it is in the spiritual spheres up there, in the godly, you'll find it in the human being down here as well. The limbs of the person are harmonized in the sense, where each one is called one from the other, and the epitome of integration. Not only that they tolerate each other, as it's explained, they actually contribute to each other. It's not just, I'm not going to explode if you're sitting next to me. They're actually receiving. The chesed receives from the gevura. The chesed is enhanced by the gevura. The gevura is enhanced by the chesed. It's scholars. Each one has to contribute to the other. The beginning, in some ways, this is a contributor and he's the recipient, and other things he's the recipient and he's the giver. As it's stated by Makamacher. We have to say sheyesh b'china Shem Havaya gam b'chol prat uprat. So Shem Havaya permeates everywhere, in every detail. This is so gewaldig, this whole concept of Arizal. That it's not like just in one specific element. It's in all of existence. It's in everything. Because in the Ze'er Anpin, which is Atzilus, this is the reality. Now, the question is, how is that going to carry over actually into creation? In creation, is that, so on a certain degree we see, as he says, Ba'adam HaTachtoin, in the human being, even his limbs are that way. But soon we're going to see a differentiation. We're going to get to that. Since there is a scholarless from everything in every detail, so even every small little specific is compared to the essential perfect one, which is God, that is above it all. Canal be'inyan teferes, as we spoke earlier regarding teferes. Move on, it's understood. The kamoisha pi Kabbalah Ramak, just like according to the Kabbalah of Ramosha Cordova, the Ramak, the Shem Havaya b'Teferes canal. The Shem Havaya is in Teferes. Why? Because Teferes has his scholarless Chesed and Gevura. Kach b'China Shem Havaya b'Protis. So there will be Shem Havaya b'Protis. Kol hamidos tezah, of all the midos of the Ze'er Anpin al pi Kabbalah Arizal, according to the Kabbalah. The Shem Havaya, like the mini Shem Havaya, in every part, everywhere, because it's all got a taste of the Orin Soif. That's in the specifics. So in the generals are for sure. Ze'er Anpin for sure it's that way. Dach. The general element of Ze'er Anpin is called Havaya. Because the specific, the particle, is dependent on the general. So the reason why all the details of it is so blended is because the general is blended. It's all because of this magnificent system of hiskalalos, of integration. Sheyesh boy, which is there in it, both bechlal in general, ubefrat and specific in iskal, as we said earlier. One is dependent on the other. The ikar, who klal is the zah. The main one is the main element is the general element of the Ze'er Anpin, shenikar shem havaya bechlal, which is called shem havaya. V'hu shem ma, the adam datzilos, and that's what we refer to shem ma, yud ke vav ke. B'milui alfin, with the milui of aleph, which make up 45, which is the name of God as he's manifesting in Ze'er Anpin, which represents this bittul and this hiskalalus, and the aleph also represents the orein soif that's causing this hiskalalus, ki yidu as it is known, v'day lamev. Comes out an amazing difference, because according to the Ramak, only Teferes we can refer to as Havaya. According to Arizal, all of Atzilus, or the Ze'er Anpin, it can be, in general, referred to as Havaya. But here is where the Rebbe says an interesting thing. There is a difference, the Alter Rebbe says, between the Pnimius of the Ze'er Anpin, to the external element of Ze'er Anpin. Every sphere and every attribute is Pnimius and Chitzonius. And Pnimius means the way it is in the inside, and Chitzonius means the way it is on the outside, externally. The Dafke b'Pchenas HaPnimius, which means more in the neshama of it, in its Pnimius, who inyan Pchenas HaTikon. And now that's where, in the inside, it says, Shem Ma Melagav. Shem Ma flows in the inside of Atzilus, the inner flow of Atzilus. And therefore, over there, it sensed the Orin Soif, and since it sensed the Orin Soif, it creates Tikon, which is a skalalus in every aspect of it, but in the Pnimius of it. Shubchenes Eskalalus, which produces this Eskalalus integration and unity, Bechlal or Beprat, in general and specific. And this is through the new power of Shema, Shenimshach B'Ze'er Anpin, that is drawn in Ze'er Anpin, Lios B'chenes Eskalalus, Bechlal or Beprat. It's called new because it's the new, I think it's because new it came after the system of Tohu, where there was this the wars going on. And this is the new Hamshacha in Ze'er Anpin. It's not Lios B'chenes Eskalos B'chlal B'prat, for it to be in this state of integration. This idea that there's a difference between the chitzonius and the pnimius will be seen also in the human being, in the limbs. This that the organs and the limbs are very codependent on each other, and they receive from each other. And therefore we find that when a lot of times when you want to heal, especially in Oriental medicine, you want to heal one part of the body, you can do work on a complete different other part of the body. You go to a acupuncturist, they'll tell you, you have a stomach ache, and they'll be pressing pressure points on your toes or on your heel, because it's all connected one to each other. Kidu as it is known. Which is this in skalos. Who are they? Sibas or pnimi mepnimius anefesh. It's not the limbs on their own. Yes, they're integrated, but that's because there's a flow of the soul that's flowing. This inner light of the soul itself, which is, you're one human being. You're not a composition of 248, limbs. You are one human. Now, one human has 248 limbs. Because of the oneness of that one soul, it causes the limbs too to become completely one entity, where they're all so integrated and interwoven and interdependent one with each other, to the point that there isn't anything that functions independently, all as in unison. Shabbat, because the nefesh, Shabbat lekasher or lechab, in other words, the pnimius affects even the chitzonius, but the source of it is the pnimius, which is the nefesh. Shabbat lekasher, which it comes to bond, or lechaber, and to attach, these klulim zemezeh, for the person to be kolel one from the other. Ad mebli yamatzav emrosh v'soif, to the point where you can't see a beginning and an end. Ki elyon makabel ma'atachton, because the one at top receives from the one below. Kamashukasam makam achar, stated elsewhere. But if you're analyzing the limbs themselves on their own, they're separate one from the other. And each limb and each organ, its mezeg, its chemistry and its nature, is separated than the other. Its texture, its bone, bone structure, but each part of the body has its own unique makeup. And in terms of also its function. Hayad lichtayv, the hand will write, lifral pa'ula, or to do other activities. The eye and mirais, and the eye doesn't do any activities. The eye does its job, and that's to see. Okay, and we know that, therefore, we know the material that the hand is made up is very different than the material that the eye is made up. And this will be understood also above. We have to differentiate in the supernal man of Atzilus Gamkein al derech zeh, that just like it is by us, a difference between the pnimius and the chitzonius, and even if there is a unification, it's because the pnimius is causing the unification. The same is also above, that there is a unification in Atzilus itself. Of course, over there isn't the physical body, but still there is a chitzonius compared to the pnimius. And the pnimius of it, which is this flow, the soul of tikkun that flows in it. The neshama of Atzilus, that's what drives the hiskalalus of all the details. Until you can't find the beginning and the end. And the general power together. And dafka, when they're all unified together through that singular power that's in them, that's why it's called Adam. And that creates already that in every detail and in sub-detail, there should be that harmony. B'chol midah, and every midah k'niskel, as we said earlier. Shakol midah klula mehepecha betachlis eskalos. That every midah incorporates within itself the opposite with a perfect integration. All this is only in the pnimi. All this is only in the pnimi, which is through the name Ma, which is the root of tikkun. We turn over the page. As it says on page 634, Shema b'milu yalfin milagav. The Shema, which is the milu of olives, which is in the inside. The oirach atzilus, this is the pathway of atzilus. It's explained elsewhere. The explanation is. But on the chitzonius of Zeir Anpin, adarabba, on the contrary, Kol hamidei shebo yotzem uvdalim umafradim zeh mizeh. On the chitzonius level of Zeirampin, each one emerges separate from the other. Hepech b'chinas eskalos, not in the eskalos. Al derech dugma mitzir eschalkas evarim, similar to the Elim. So how does that mean practically? So when chesed emerges, the gevura is separate from it in its emergence, in its full outward manifestation. But don't we see that even when we have chesed in it, a person can have control of the chesed. There can be gevura in the chesed. Like, what does it mean that he says over here? When the spheres come out, they come out each one independently. I'm not exactly sure. You can say relative to the Pneumius, where they're really integrated. And the reason why this separation is dafka in the chitzonius and the external, because the name ma, which bonds, and unifies them, and not in the chitzonius. The im kain, and according to this, so this that we said in Eitz Chaim, that Zeir Anpin is called Shem Havaya, now we have to realize that that's only in the Pneumius of it. That's in the Pneumius where there is this Eskalalus and this Achdus. Because of the Eskalalus, but not in the chitzonius, not in the external. Because in the chitzonius, they're separated. In the state of pirud, once each one stands for what it stands for, then it only has a specific name. You can't attribute it to general name of God, because it's only functioning with one function. It's functioning to do chesed only. The other one is functioning to do gevura only. So Shem Yuchud Ve'atzmin Dafka Bilti Shituf V'Chibur, without the partnership and attachment Im Shem Achar Zolas Klal, with another name that's different than it. It's similar to the state of affairs as it was, the lights of Tohu. In the level of spots or dots that we spoke about earlier. Points, which they were separated. One sphere is separated, not a partsuf, not a configuration. And that is in the 6 days of creation. In the 6 days of creation, you have the spherois. We said, remember, when we learned the Zohar, Sheishes Yamim Asa Hashem, 6 days God made, means that the spherois themselves were activated down here. But how were they transmitting? Not their pneumius, they were transmitting more the chitzonius, as he's going to prove in a minute. Since they were activating and functioning from the chitzonius level of it, that's why the world that it created is a world where things were designated, each one in their place, in which we don't, a world of variation, in the sense that things are specified, and each thing comes in its place. The desert is the desert, and the mountains on the mountains, here it's freezing cold, and here it's boiling hot. It's a separate weather system and a separate climate. Each place, its own climate. It's different. Each day is different, as we're going to see. Each period in history comes out different. And that's because, and in a sense, there even seems to be extremes, where things are following an extreme order in a specific way. And then you come into a different point in history, and you see that the entire context of life and of existence is very different, because the chemistry of life is different. I mean, if you tap into the godly, see, because there's a different energy of God present in the world at that time. That's why it's so different on the outside. And that's because the spheres are acting in a exclusive manner, where every sphere is isolated on its own. In other words, the concept of Eskalalus is not felt so much outside of Atzilus, because where Atzilus is where the spheres are in their pneumistic state. But when they're emerging out into the lower worlds, that's the chitzonius. And the chitzonius, the limbs, as we spoke earlier, are more differentiated. And that's why, for instance, in Atzilus, you can feel the Or Ein Sof. So everybody's unified. In the Or Ein Sof, everybody's one. Outside of Atzilus, you don't feel the Or Ein Sof. As we said before, what makes the unity and harmony in the person? The Or HaNefesh, the singular light of the one soul. But where the light of the one soul is not felt, then you can feel more the differences in the limbs of the body. And even though the 6 days of creation are rooted in the 6 days of the Zeir Anpin, and the Zeir Anpin is Havaya, which is Eskalulus, since they are drawn from the Chitzonius of the Zeir Anpin, and not from the Pnimius, as it is known that Rak mebchenes hakelim the Yutzfiris de Zoh, the Atzilus nasen aran bibiyah. As we know that the influence of the 10 spheres in Atzilus, or the Zeir Anpin, let's say, of the 6 spheres or 7 spheres, which is the source of the 6 days of creation, the 6 days of the week, and all of that, or the 6 directions, as it is known that the spheres extended influence lower is only the kalim. We know that in every sphere there's oiros and kalim, lights and vessels. So we say that the light of the vessel, which is the pnimius, is not really carrying through past the parsa, past the partitions. Only the kalim of the spheres are becoming, in the lower world, they become the neshama, they become the energy, which in the higher world, they're only the kalim. And kalim, as we said earlier, are more specified. Says, as it is known that kalim, the Yutzfiris, the Atzilus, only from the level of kalim, of the 10 spheres of the Zeir Anpin of Atzilus, Nas and Aran, that becomes the nefesh ruach neshama, that becomes the soul, bibiyah in bria tzir and asiya. Then lamed kalim, and altogether it says there are 30 powers, 30 kalim. Why 30? 10 spheres of bria, 10 spheres of yetzira, 10 spheres of asiya. In each world there's 10 spheres. So the 10 spheres of these 3 worlds, which are considered the creation, they're the neshama of the world. These neshamas are really the kalim in Atzilus, that's not neshama. The neshama in Atzilus, the Or Ein Sof, remains in Atzilus, does not continue further. The kalim that receive that light come down. And where do you have 30 kalim? There's only 10 spheres in Atzilus. Because the kalim of those 10 spheres, there is the inner part of the keli that touches the light. There is the middle part of the keli, which is like the etzem of the keli. And then there is the external part of the keli, the way the keli already functions to the outside. And obviously the chitzonius of the keli is the most weakest part of the keli. The pnimius of the keli is the strongest. So in the 10 kalim of Atzilus, it gets it breaks down as follows. In Bria, it's the pnimius of the keli of Atzilus that becomes the neshama, the nefesh ruach neshama, the soul power of the world of Bria. In Yetzira, it's the middle part of the kalim of Atzilus that become there, and that's why the quality of the world of Yetzira is far downgraded from the world of Bria. And in Asiya, it's even lower because it's only the chitzonius of the kalim of the sphere. So that's the last 10 kalim of the 30 kalim. So, but in general, since it's only kalim, and in kalim you don't feel so much the shem ma, which brings about this eskalulus and this oneness, and that's why he's going to explain. You can see that the world is a world of differentiation and separation. And even though I mentioned earlier that in the DNA of the person you can see the entire DNA, and in truth the world is very much integrated, but compared to the integration and assimilation and oneness that is felt in the world of Atzilus, the concept of oneness is not so obvious in the world of Asiya, because we feel more, over here the differences are more pronounced. V'hen lamed kalim denehi dezah. These are the 30 kalim of Netzach Hod Yesod of the Zeir Anpin. Meyid ha'pnimis, from the 10 innermost, that creates neshama, the bria, the neshama of bria. And then from the middle, Yetzirah and so forth. And that's the reason. Now we'll understand why the Sheishes Yomim, the 6 days, are called weekday. Weekday means they're mundane. They're not. Hold it, didn't we say that Zeir Anpin is Havaya? If it's Havaya, it's Kodesh, it's holy, it's God. It's the emotions of God. The answer is When are they considered, when is the Eibishter present in them? When the spheres are all in a state of perfect harmony and bottle and one with their soul that's flowing in them, which is the Orein Soif. That's when it's Havaya. But when the Chitzonius of it goes out, and the proof that it's only Chitzonius is because it's operating and functioning in a way of distinction, where each one is a thing unto its own, and in many ways it's clashing with others. That's an indication that the Orein Soif is not there. Havaya is not there. So if it's not Havaya, then it's Chol, it's weekday, it's Monday. So even though we're dealing with a divine energy, we're dealing with, but it's already considered an outsider of the palace. And we're going to see that when these days are invited into Yom Tiv, to a higher state, to connect to the Pnimius, that's like a guest coming. Even though we're talking about divine powers, but it has become so diminished of its divinity, and the fact that it became lost the quality of Orein Soif to it, which is displayed in the lack of Achdus. This is so amazing. When we feel we can be in isolation, and I don't want to hurt the idea that we're in isolation now, but when we can do it alone, I don't need anybody else, and I'm good on my own, and so on and so forth, I don't need to receive from anybody, integrate with anybody, so on and so forth. I don't have to attach myself to other Jews, to other people. That's the most godless of states we can be in. It's an indication of the non-presence of the Orein Soif. This idea that you see also, for example, when you have a Rebbe, for instance, amongst a Rebbe, you have it takes a community, makes them all into one, because you have the Orein Soif that's dwelling there in this tzaddik. Sadly, when you don't see the Rebbe, it created a lot of division amongst the Chassidim. Because mitzad the chitzonius of Kalim, there are people that think different. You need that glue, you need that power, that powerful presence to harmonize and hold it all together. And this is the reason they're called the 6 days of the week. It's drawn down and it goes down from Atzilas to Biyah. To enliven the spirit of the lowly. Neshamas Malachim de Biyah, the Neshamas Malachim of Bria Tzir and Asiya. Maayon Liyesh Gomer, as it's going down to create the world. Maayon Liyesh, to be something. For whom I Sachol, that's a mundane activity. V'loy Kodesh. Its objective of what these divine energies need to do over here is to create a world that feels itself as a something, as a yesh. That itself, is considered a weekday function, a mundane function, because in holiness, the experience is there's only God. So in Atzilus, for instance, where there's no yesh, where the Sheishes Yom are not yet functioning to create, over there, it's Iyu v'chiyu v'chimur God. Hashem is one with everything. There's no yesh, there's nothing other than God. All is one with Him. Everything is a lukus, and everything is b'b'chinas ein sof. Everything is in a state of ein sof, and everything is in perfect harmony with each other. And with this we'll understand the reason in the 10 utterances. Why they're separated from each other, and they came in different days. On the first day of 6 days of creation, only one. It wasn't like there was the 10 Mamoris every day. The first day, on Sunday, only one. Only let there be light, which light is a function of chesed. Ubiyom Beis, when it came Monday, Heir Maimer Yehirakia. On Monday came the Maimer Yehirakia, which Yehirakia is a total antithesis to Yehi Oyer. Yehi Oyer is God's luminance on the world, closeness, and Yehirakia is His distance, making a barrier. I'm up here, your guys are down there, separating the spiritual from the physical. Disconnect. The Yedua Shamayim, which is Gevura. The Yedua Shamayim Yehi Oyer nimshach midas hachesed Atzilus. Yehi Oyer is coming from Chesed of Atzilus. Ki hachesed mashpia omei v'Oyer. Chesed wants to give light, wants to illuminate. Umayim Yehirakia, and the utterance Yehirakia, who bov and nimshach m'chinas midas hagevura, comes from midas hagevura. Ki harakia zen nasa lahavdil. It comes to make machloikis and comes to separate that he shouldn't reveal himself, to hold back, which is gevura. Which is through din and tzimtzum and contraction. Judgment and contraction. Which is the opposite of flow. Histalkus means departure. That's why Sunday and Monday, 2 different days. We feel such a difference. You ever feel Monday the same like Sunday? It's a whole different reality. It's as if you entered into a new world. People are like kind of depressed on Monday, and Sunday everybody's so happy. Sunday, it's like Sunday is chesed, Monday is gevura, and there's no connection between them. It's a different energy, chemistry to the day. On Sunday there was no gevura at all, and on Monday there's no chesed. Just plain straight. That's why it was harsh, and it says God yelled. Hashem yelled at the, and then there was harsh feelings, and the waters are crying. And you feel the gevura, and there's no right, only gevura. Every day did according to its madrega. Like the Rebbe always uses the word kol yoim avad avidite. Every day does its own work. There's no shaykhs and a kesher between one day and the other day. Each day stands on its own. Now, interesting over here in our order 65, he brings from a Maimer in Tafresh Nun Ches from the Rebbe Rashab and from a Divinaim in Mizmor Shir. He brings this, that he says that every day was only one Maimer because it's each sphera, each Inyan. Besides, there's 10 Mamoros, and we know that what? There's 10 Mamoros, and there's only 6 days of creation. So we know that on Tuesday, and on Friday, Hashem said 2 Mamoros. It still doesn't give us 10, it gives us 8. Where do you end up with the other 2? I'm not exactly sure, so we have to look it up. But on Tuesday and on Friday. On Tuesday, Hashem did 2 work. Hashem finished the work of Monday, plus He said, let there grow vegetation. And on Friday, God did 2 things too. He created the animals and He created the human. So why on Tuesday? Because Tuesday, we said, even according to the Shita of the Ramak, that says that the spheros are separated, which would be similar to the chitzonius of the spheros, where even according to the Arizal, they're separated. What does the Ramak say? Tiferes harmonizes. Tiferes does that. And that's why Tuesday, Hashem can blend two Mamoros. And even though one is one thing and the other, and you can't mix apples and oranges. Yet on Tuesday you could mix apples with oranges, because Tuesday is a day of harmony. So 2 Mamoros came on Tuesday. And based on what we're learning now, it means that Tuesday is a much higher day. Tuesday is a much godlier day. That's why the Rebbe always used to speak about Tuesday with Tuesday is like such a good day. The goodness of Tuesday is that it's Tiferes, and if it's Tiferes, it allows for there's much more presence of Orein Seif on Tuesday. The world is godlier on Tuesday. It's not like Shabbos, but it's godlier on Tuesday than it is Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday and Thursday. Friday is Firas HaYesod. Over there, so where do you have Eskalus in Yesod? So first of all, Yesod is in the middle, but he doesn't say that. He says that Yesod has also 2 hashpahs, 2 forms of hashpah from Yesod. Pnimius and Chitzonius. The Chitzonius of the hashpah of Yesod is when you're teaching Seichel, you're teaching something and you're connecting to your students. Yesod means bonding. So there is the bonding that comes when a teacher is teaching students, and then there is another bonding that comes in an intimacy when you're giving your essence in creating a child. And that's a more pneumistic hashpah. So he says the first hashpah of Friday was the shpah chitzonius, when God Taka created the animals. And the second hashpah, which was a much deeper pneumistic hashpah of his essence, was from Yesod, Friday, which was the creation of man. The human is like the child of Hashem. It is. So that's just the idea, how you see, but in general we see that other than that, the days are very different and separated. He says, just like it was in the 6 days of creation, same is also in the 6th millennium. In the 6,000 years of the world, the first 1,000 was the light of Chesed. That's why the first 1,000 years, the world was in a state of extreme kindness. People lived very long and there was no accountability. People were corrupt, but yet they kept on receiving God's blessings without any problems. And life was literally a Gan Eden. The 6th millennium was also similar to that. If you look at the history of the first 1,000 years and the history of the second 1,000 years, it's as if it's two, you wonder if it's the same boss. He was so tolerant and so kind the first 1,000 years, second he's so angry, punishing and right, experiencing God's wrath. Based on the reason we said before. So even though in Atzilus they're so unified, when they come down in general, in every week, 6 days of the weekdays of every year, which we know that every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it gets a little bit of the Sunday of the original Sunday. That on Sunday, of every Sunday, it is shining from the kalim of the lights of Chesed of the 6 directions of Asiyah. That means of the spheres of Asiyah, on Sunday the Chesed is projecting in the Monday. Which eventually in the Chesed of Asiyah is the Chesed of Yetzirah, the Chesed of Bria, and eventually it has within it the Chesed of Atzilus. They're only from the Chitzainis of the Zeiram Pimpel Vad Keniskaliel. So we end up in mundane time. They come separated one beneath the other, more in a tohu dig way. They're separated one from each other. Like the layout of the lights of Toyu, which they were extremists, each one on their own. With all of this, I'm just going to learn this last paragraph, because then when he starts explaining how Shabbos is different, I don't understand it. So I'm going to leave that part so I can further investigate it and hopefully understand what the idea of how it's different on Shabbos. With this, we'll understand the general mashal that's explained in this maimer. The difference between Shabbos and Yom Tiv. The Shabbos nimshol lebra. The Shabbos is compared to a son. The Yom Tiv l'shashvinin, and Yom Tiv is compared to a guest. Now we said Yom Tiv is when Yom Tiv comes out on the weekday. The chitzoni is the zeirampin. The chitzoni is the external of the zeirampin. Shemeirim b'biyah that shines in Bria Tzir and Asiya Kneskliyal. Harehem nasim yoimin d'choil mamish. They literally become, as we said before, the 6 days of Atzilus descend down through the Kalim extension, and the Kalim, and it so evolves down to become days of weekday mamish. And they're not called anymore Shem Havaya, right? As they go down below, ad raglei Asiya, till the feet of the world of Asiya, which means the physical planet. Al derech digmas yoyme echad b'chol shvua, till when it becomes our Sunday. The or v'shefa kli chesed atzilus, the lights and the shefa and the flow of the kalim of chesed of atzilus, of the kindness of the world of emanation, nishtalshul v'yarad, through a chain-like progression, evolved or v'yarad and descended v'nimshach ma'olam la'olam, and descended from world to world. Ad malchus shebemalchus ta'asiyah, until it came down to the malchus of the world of Asiya, bedalad yesodis agashmim. Within the 10 spheres of Asiya, the energy has to travel from attribute to until it goes into malchus. And in malchus, it's the chesed of malchus. That's the Sunday and the chesed. Right? So till it can emerge into the 4 elements of Gashmias, lashpia shefa parnasa, for it to be mashpia, the flow of livelihood and all the goodies that we receive. It's now a very material chesed. To enliven with material kindness, b'mazon gashmi, and giving us physical food. So first of all, it materialized, it chunkied itself, it became substance of physical. It also became in a state of pirut, where everything in the physical world is differentiated. This is this and that's that. From the abundance of evolution, it distanced itself from the Pnimius, from the Neshama, where the Neshama holds it all together. Because its root, it goes out from Atzilus. Libiyah, to bri Yatzir and Asira, Mufrad umuvdal, it descends in a state of separate, bilti b'chinas eskalulus, without that integration. And when it doesn't have the eskalulus, aim meir sham b'chinas shleimus to oirin soif. So the oirin soif does not dwell over there. B'shem avaya keniskaliel, the shem avaya, as we said earlier. Ela meir rak b'shem proti. Then it's coming through a specific channel. V'shem keil b'midas hachesed. It's still divine, so it's still a name of God, but it's not reflecting the oirin soif anymore. It's a specific name. V'shem elokim b'midas hagvura, and the name of Elokim in the midas of gvura. V'hinei kishe'ira yomtiv. So once it becomes already a specific something, even though, as we said before, it's divine powers, it's considered already a stranger. And if it's invited, when God invites it inward, He's going to elevate a weekday. That means that the energy of the godly energy of the day is being pulled in and invited in to plug into a much deeper flow and connection to the infinite one, to God Himself, to come to the palace we're going to see, to be elevated all the way into Chachma, where in Chachma everything is completely unified with the Orein Sof. So we're inviting it all the way up. This is going like millions of levels as it's going inward. The invitee is called a guest. Even though it's a piece of God, it's called a guest because it has already separated itself. When Yontiv comes out during the weekday, this weekday becomes a holy day. And the reason is, the chitzonius of Zeir Anpin is then pulled in, and it rises into a pnimiistic state. It's now going to receive moichen from Netzach Chod Yesoid of Bina. Ubenetzach Chod Yesoid de Ema, and in the Netzach Chod Yesoid of Ema, Melubish Mebchenes Nehida Abba. The way it's elevated be'ikr, it's Yom Tov. So it's elevated where, as we said before, my Adam L'Simcha. It's elevated into it's Moichen de Ema. It's elevated into Bina, which is a huge elevation. Chitzonius of Zeir Anpin into Bina, it's huge. And in Bina is what is invested the lights of Chachma. The Zer Shenikra Mikra Kodesh, it's called a calling of holiness canal. The Azmet B'chinas Oira Keser. And since in Chachma is Meir the lights of Keser, of the Orein Sof, Shabbat Mebchinas Malchus to Ein Sof, which that comes from the Malchus of Ein Sof, which is Mamish, God Himself. Shemeir ba'oir Abba, that's illuminating in the light of Abba. V'huma lubish be'ema, and Abba is enclosed in mother in Bina. Harei meir oirein soif ba'oisei yoyim achoil. So that day is now infused with powerful revelation of oirein soif. It's a godly day. Time itself has now been elevated into to be saturated with God's presence. Elchach nikra Yom Tov kamoy shoshvina. That's why Yom Tov is called like a guest. The Ol Malka that went up to the king. Al derech mashal ish. It's compared to a person that was far from the king, umiskarev lavay al shulchan hamelech, and has been invited to come to the king's table. Kach miyoim zeh shenisrachik, from this day that was distant, ba'oir elaki, from the godly light, miskarev, it comes close, ubali is gili oirein soif, that there should be a Gili Orein Soif in that level, in that day. Al derech hanal, v'dai l'mevin, and now it could be, it's enough to those who understand. But Shabbos, he says, is the pnimius. I'll just tell you what he says before we. Shabbos, he says, is a whole different story. Shabbos is also the world's going in. But Shabbos itself is the pnimius of the Zeir Anpin. Since Shabbos is the pnimius of the Zeir Anpin, when you're calling up Shabbos to come into Kodesh, into Chachma, even though it's being elevated, since it was Pnimius of Zeir Anpin, and Pnimius of Zeir Anpin is Shem Havaya anyway, to begin with it's Shem Havaya. So you're calling someone who's just like extension of, it's like God's child. Zeir Anpin, being that it's called Havaya, it's like Hashem Himself, being called to a deeper connection. It's not calling an outsider in. What I don't get over here is how does Shabbos become the pnimius of the Ze'er Anpin? Isn't Shabbos Malchus, which Shabbos is the seventh day. So the Chud of Shabbos is Malchus, being the seventh day, so it's not the pnimius of the Ze'er Anpin, but it's even more external. So what does he mean that Shabbos is the pnimius of the Ze'er Anpin? How does it fit with the idea of Shabbos being the seventh and Shabbos being Malchus? That I don't know yet, and that's why I don't want to continue this. We'll, Be'ezus Hashem, continue this next week, Thursday night, in the courtyard side room of the Holy Temple, the third Beis Hamikdash. So the Mimer is much clearer to me now after I taught it than when I was reading it today. So it looks like there's a lot to look forward over here. Depends how far we're going to learn. There's the Mimer, the explanations of the Mimer. So maybe we're just going to keep on going and we're going to learn the explanations of the Mimer and we're going to get through the entire Inyan. That'll probably take us 4 weeks if we do the whole thing. That could be a good introduction for Shavuos. Maybe let's just do that. Understand and appreciate the idea of Yom Tiv and all these Inyanim. I'm sure there's a whole lot of goodies over here. Beautiful. Thank you for joining.